of any president, and Joe Biden's finished 2 points below him, and he didn't allegedly incite anything.
You can't
make it up.
You can't make that sort of stuff up. So all of this is going to be covered.
Yeah, just to say, we're going to run the live feed the whole time for you watching on YouTube, but also the speech. We believe the inauguration speech will be around 4:45, 5 o'clock. We'll run that in full on Talk.
Yeah, I didn't realise 47 minutes past because he's the 47th president.
Is that right?
Apparently, that's literally when they say. Congratulations,
I
Mr.
start at
President.
4 because I'm the 4th drive time presenter this year.
There it is. Jeremy's here on the other side of the news at 4 o'clock, which is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Just gone 4 o'clock. It is Monday, the 20th of January 2025, the day that Donald Trump becomes the 47th president of the United States of America. Talk will take exclusive live coverage. We're going to have pictures throughout the afternoon. That is the Rotunda on Capitol Hill. That is where the inauguration of Donald Trump in less than an hour will take place. It's been moved inside. You might have heard this. The weather is a vortex across Washington, D.C., up to -20. They brought it inside. It's an extraordinary cast of people. It's a pretty triumphant return, as I was saying just there. Whatever your politics, this is a man who was run out of Washington, D.C., not, 4 years ago and 2 weeks ago after it was the 6th, wasn't it? So, yeah, 4 years and 2 weeks. Everything that happened on Capitol Hill. He won the popular vote. Whether you like him or loathe him, today is a massively important day for the world, for America. And I just want to draw your attention to something somebody said the other day. They sent a message in to me and said, here's a man who stands up and says to Americans, like me or loathe me, I'll make your money last longer. I'll make your social situation safer. I'll make this country better. I'll make the police stronger and the army stronger, and I'll make you proud to be American. And somebody sent me a text going, couldn't we do with somebody like that here? Whatever you think of Donald Trump, it is certainly going to be a ride. You look at, if you aren't watching on YouTube, it's extraordinary. We've got Zuckerberg, we've got Bezos, we've got Elon Musk, we've got all sorts of people on the stage waiting for him to come in. We'll talk throughout the whole thing about what's happening, and we'll get reaction as ever if you want to take part in the show. 0344 499 1000 is my telephone number. Text to 87222. You can also, of course, start your message with the word talk. It will be all about the inauguration. Later on, we'll obviously talk about the other news, including that horrific story, the Southport killings. Southport killer pleads guilty to murdering 3 children. I'm not even going to name him. He's a piece of scum who needs to rot in hell for all eternity. We'll do that later on. Right now, though, we'll start with our international editor, and we'll say a very good afternoon to Isabel Oakeshott. Hello, Izzy, are you busy?
Oh my God, yes, I am so busy. I think as is the entire media today, because it is an absolute whopper of a news day, somehow combining the inauguration of Donald Trump with that sensational development in the Southport murder trial. Very unexpected that Axel Rudikabana pleaded guilty to pretty much everything, if not everything, that he was charged with. I must say that there will be a number of conspiracy theorists who wonder why it was that development took place on the same day as the inauguration, and whether the authorities perhaps had a hand in the choreography there. It is tremendously convenient for the Prime Minister as he faces a slew of allegations about a cover-up and catastrophic failures of the so-called PREVENT program, that all this is coming out on the day that Donald Trump is...
Well, let's just say it very quickly before we get into the inauguration. This piece of scum, Axel Rudikabana, got referred to the government's counter-terrorism group, PREVENT, several times. Nobody did anything. He's admitted this afternoon, this agent, to stabbing 3 young children to death in Southport. There will be many people with an opinion, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't want to make today about Starmer. You could argue that that has been released for that reason. And then I'm watching in farcical moments today on several news outlets. What did he say, Sir Keir Starmer? Good luck with your inauguration, President Trump. I look forward to our special relationship maintaining itself for years to come. I said it as a joke. Alex Phillips went to the inauguration. Sir Keir Starmer didn't get invited. Liz Truss is at the inauguration. Donald Trump, Starmer didn't get invited. I think this man is, fresh from sending people to help Kamala Harris lose, that's going to get right under the Trump skin. I just think he's an inconsequential human being, increasingly day by day. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think he's pretty inconsequential on the world stage. I mean, so far, all his international efforts seem to have been blunders, if we look at the Chagos deal as the most high profile of those. And the Trump administration will, of course, pay lip service. They'll go through the motions. I don't think they're going to veto Labour's chosen one for the ambassadorial role, Peter Mandelson. I think that will probably go through. There have been some speculation that Trump may say no to that. But I don't think that either Donald Trump or his inner circle have any time or respect for Keir Starmer. He embodies everything that they hate.
And can I just say, I think there's all this talk about this special relationship, and there was do you remember when even Theresa May, when he first won in 2016, she was inside the White House as the first foreign leader within 7 days. I think he'll be at the back of the queue. I think that speaks volumes, and I think you could argue that Donald Trump is somebody who holds a grudge or whatever. But yeah, Starmer, a complete embarrassment. What I wanted to talk about briefly, because we've got loads to talk about, is we're all in bated breath waiting for him to be inaugurated. I'm also all in bated breath to wake up. See, he says, I'm going to destroy Joe Biden's legacy within hours. I gave one earlier saying that allegedly he's going to get rid of, legally, you won't be able to use pronouns in any federal building, which will be absolutely fantastic. He calls it a revolution of common sense. Thank the Lord, Isabel, right? Thank the Lord.
You might think the Trump team have been listening to talk.
Yeah.
They'll get some good ideas from us, and we'll hopefully get some good ideas from them. Yes, he said basically this is a kind of shock and awe by executive order, and he's promised us all great entertainment as we watch him using the power that he has to unravel as much as he can Joe Biden's legacy. I think people will be particularly interested to see what he plans and what he's about to do on immigration and everything that he's been saying about mass deportations. I think he means business on that. And what happens over there is, of course, a source of either, depending on your political viewpoint, horror or inspiration here in the UK. And it will be fascinating to see, what does mass deportation of illegal immigrants in America actually look like? Because we know what it looks like in developing countries, in really rough regimes that don't muck around. But what does that look like in leader of the free world America? And is it something that we could do obviously on a more modest scale, with all the people that should be deported from the UK?
Listen, don't go anywhere. We're watching the pictures of the rotunda. We're waiting for Donald Trump to come in. I can tell you that J.D. Vance, the Vice President-elect, will be sworn in first. And apparently, Isabel, you know this, Trump will be sworn in as the 47th US President at 4:47, or his speech will start that moment. However, you and I have got disagreement already. We've got a voice note from Neil. He's not a happy bunny. Go, Neil.
Hey, Jeremy, just want to say it is an absolute joke that Donald Trump is going to be becoming president again. And now that he's only got 4 years to implement everything, he's just got to go mad and the world's got to pay for it.
Isabel Oakeshott?
I think the world's paid a very heavy price for his predecessor, the outgoing Joe Biden, all sorts of nonsense that he presided over and all sorts of failure to make things better on so many levels. So I'm not really sure what the caller is referring to. What's he worried about? Is it the unraveling of the net zero absolute con that is inflicted on us by Ed Miliband as well? Is it that he wants to hold on to diversity and equality and inclusion claptrap? Is it that he wants lots of government waste? Does he not want Elon Musk to smoke out all the gross abuse of taxpayers' money that happens on the other side of over there in America, in the same way that we have it here? I'd love to know what that caller...
I guess the thing is, I was reading a couple of people online today who I probably shouldn't have, and they were saying, you know, this man's he's done this to women, his language, he's done this, he's done that, he's an absolute flipping disgrace. The fact of the matter is, I've never sat here and pretended that Donald Trump is perfect in any which way. Some of his rhetoric and some of the things he's done, I categorically disagree with. But you look at the world. Justin Trudeau, that pathetic wet liberal, has been driven out in Canada. You're quite right about Joe Biden, right? The left have been in power in America for 4 years, and the popular vote couldn't wait to oust him. They've done nothing about immigration, the very subject the left hate to talk about because, oh, my God, these poor people. No, there are many poor people, and both America and the United Kingdom and Europe has done right by those people, but there's a lot of people nowadays taking advantage. What Donald Trump did was he managed to stand up and say, this is what I believe in, and you can try and assassinate me, you can try and prosecute me, you can try and slag me off, you can do whatever. I believe that this is what America needs, and I think that it's a seminal moment. The whole of Europe's gone to the right, America's gone to the right, I've no doubt Canada will go to the right, and stupid, idiotic Keir Starmer is sat in the middle of our country worrying about... Well, look, I mean, somebody said to me in the makeup room today, you know, how do you respect a man who still won't agree to a national inquiry into rape gangs who have been doing what they've been doing for 20 years in this country? Donald Trump, I can tell you categorically, would have instigated a national inquiry into those rape gangs within 5 minutes of becoming Prime Minister. That doesn't make him a perfect human being, but it tells me he understands what people want, Isabel.
Well, what he would have also done is ensured that any of the perpetrators of those crimes, known perpetrators, as soon as he had the power, if he could find a way, because of course even presidents aren't almighty, he would have had them either deported if they're not British citizens, or ensured that they were behind bars for a proper length of time. And people in this country just feel that there hasn't been proper justice for the victims of the rape gangs. It's still going on. It's amazing the way that story has actually kind of caught the popular imagination over in America in a way that not many of our stories actually do. That really seems to have had cut through, of course, thanks to Elon Musk getting on board with it and really winding things up over it.
But I mean, also going back to that text that person sent about America, whether you love him or you loathe him, I mean, I'm of the mindset that we should be proud of our country. We should protect our children. We should try and do the right thing. And there is absolutely no doubt that that is a stain on everything that the United Kingdom should be about. And I'm not just laying this at Sir Keir Starmer's door. There's obviously been a cover-up rather, and I just know that somebody like Trump, I mean, yes, there'll be crazy executive orders. Actually, can you help me? What is the difference between an executive order and a law? Can an executive order be thrown out by the Senate or Congress?
I don't think so. I think that's kind of the point of it. I mean, it doesn't mean that they can just announce any old thing, but I think that the point of it is they're within certain parameters, a president can just say, this is what's happening. And that's what Donald Trump intends to do.
Interested in watching those pictures? If you are watching on YouTube, I'll provide a commentary on radio. So, officials and politicians gathering in the Rotunda ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. And we're now having a sort of, all the old presidents are coming out. George W. Bush has just arrived, smiling. Brilliant, with his wife Laura. Bill came before that. I love how hacked off Hillary Clinton looks. She looks angry every single time I see her, as does Kamala Harris. Brilliant, because they didn't win. So George has come out. George is a character, isn't he? So all these presidents. Now, one thing I wanted to take up with you is there was that great, I don't know if you saw the footage at Jimmy Carter's funeral the other day. There was Donald Trump and I have to say Barack Obama, Isabel, having what looked like an incredible chat. And Kamala Harris looking like somebody put vinegar in her knickers. I'm really, really not happy at all. But Mrs. Obama is not coming today, whereas all the other wives and first ladies, ex-first ladies have done. No excuse. What do you make of that?
Very suspicious, isn't it? A lot of speculation.
Oh, he's just walked out on his own. Barack Obama's just walked out, 44th president of the United States, on his own. Everybody else got a wife. DOVORCE, do we reckon? Or is she just anti-Trump that much she ain't turning up?
I mean, look, I don't have any inside knowledge on this. I'm going to say that straight up. There can only be two explanations in my view. Either one, their relationship has broken down and there's a lot of rumours about that, or two, there is an illness situation that they wish to keep private, and it could perhaps affect, maybe it's not her, could be one of their children or something, I don't know. But it has to be something mega, doesn't it, to miss that?
Well, and they say that she's a principled woman who's making, you know, a stand. And then you look at all the others who absolutely loathe him, like, yeah, I know, that's why would you miss that? I wouldn't miss that. Would you miss that?
No, of course not. That's not going to fly, I'm afraid. Whoever the spin doctor there is, they need to get a better one.
Tony Lowe says, I've changed my one-word description of Starmer from sinister to liability. That's Tony in Sheffield. I wouldn't disagree. So we are live. I don't know who the hell that is. Oh, look. I think Supreme Court justices are all coming out next. They've come out after the presidents. They all got put in by Trump, didn't they? He's got that sewn up as well. It is pretty astonishing, isn't it, Isabel? Bearing in mind the sort of character that he is and how he splits the public straight down the middle, and some of the things he's done and some of the things that he said. It is extraordinary, the control he has today. The 20th of January 2025, bearing in mind what happened 4 years ago, this man has complete control of the political system, does he not, in America?
Well, not complete control.
Well, almost.
The way it's sort of devolved in America, but he controls the White House, he controls the Senate, and he controls the House of Representatives, and he controls the Supreme Court. So that's a pretty good sweep. And that is a very different position to where he was when he came in 2016. And also, you know, I think the left-leaning establishment is firmly back in their box. You know, they can't question in the way they did first time round the legitimacy of this president. Last time round, they seemed to think this was some kind of freak aberration, something that just should never have happened, and they can, you know, put everything into their power to get rid of, make go away. And this time around, they've kind of got to accept that he's got there really on his own merits after they threw everything they had at him.
I mean, that's really interesting as well. You get the distinct impression. I just saw him coming from the church service to the White House where Joe Biden went Welcome home. You see him, he looks more experienced. I think he probably arrived in Washington, D.C. 2016, probably didn't know what was going. There's a hush in the rotunda now. Oh, yes, there must be a hush. A very, very, very hacked off... Oh, no, Kamala's not coming. It's Mr. Kamala and Jill Biden, who doesn't look very happy because it's all over for her as well. But it is extraordinary. This is a political comeback, and it will be very interesting to see. They've all written about, you know, Trump 2.0. I think it will be more controlled. I think it will be, yes, there'll be moments when it's madness and all those sorts of things. But he went and he laid it on the line, and the result of that is that he won the popular vote, which I don't think a Republican presidential nominee's done for many, many years, has he?
Sorry, Jeremy, can you repeat the question?
Don't worry, I just said, I mean, it's an extraordinary victory, and he won the popular vote despite all that's happened. I think he's a different animal to the one that got the job in 2016.
Absolutely, a much more confident, assured Donald Trump, not that he ever was exactly lacking in confidence. And, you know, after all, a guy that has survived a very, very close brush with death with a assassination attempt that literally missed his ear, his head, by just a matter of a few centimetres. So this is somebody who I think will approach government slightly differently than he did last time. I mean, the leopard doesn't change his spots. You know, we're still talking about what one of our previous contributors, talking to Ian Collins, called a hand grenade on legs that can detonate at any time. But I think that this is going to be a president who is much more sure of his agenda, comes with clearly now vast experience, and has laid it out very, very openly, what he plans to do and the battles he plans to fight. And I think he's going to be all-powerful in these early months.
Listen, Isabel Oakeshot's going to stay with us. She's going to watch these things going on, and she'll come back later on. Thank you for now, Isabel. Just from Tango in Wiltshire. Jeremy, watching CNN and you, of course, on two screens. I think I just saw Alex Phillips. She's looking good in Washington, D.C., not in the Rotunda, but why has she got a pint of cider with her? 4:20. We're live across the UK. Talk Drive on the day that Donald Trump becomes the 47th President of the United States of America. And who better to have than the Sun's chief political editor, in a Republican tie. Harold Cole.
It's my never mind the
Harold
ballots tie.
Cole.
It's my never mind the ballots tie.
Is it Harold?
Sun red. No, it's not.
Harry, how are you?
Yeah.
Can we change, seriously, very quickly? Britain, this is just in from Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. This is about the Southport, those 3 innocent kids murdered by that revolting human being, Axel Rudikabana, who today has been, well, he admitted this. He was missed by Prevent, the government's anti-terrorism squad. This from Starmer. Britain will rightly demand answers over how the state failed to protect the 3 young girls murdered in the Southport attack, and the government will leave no stone unturned in that pursuit, says Starmer. What do you say as the political editor to Isabel Oakeshott, who said at 4:10 there are cynics in the press who will say that this has come out today because of everybody is concentrating on Donald Trump, and this is government at its best.
I would say the courts set the dates for trials and the like. However, from start to finish, there have been questions about the handling of this case, what the public has been told and when and why, and that has, you know, as we saw, fueled terrible, terrible scenes. It is, you know, this is the sort of thing that, obviously, because if he was going to stand trial, none of this stuff should have been out in the open anyway. That doesn't not fuel the idea that there is a cover-up. It's a really messy, grim situation, and I think the Number 10 are right to try and get on the front foot on this. And there's some more information coming later when there'll be a common statement about what that generally means about no stone unturned in that pursuit. But clearly there have been failings by the state that need to be investigated. They happened this happened in 2021, 2020, so it's multiple administrations will have questions to answer. There have been big questions about the Prevent programme. Is it fit for purpose? Has it been inquiries into Prevent have suggested essentially that they were trying to be too right on and always trying to look at far right and equate far right to jihadist extremists and Islamist extremists, and, you know, is it fit for purpose when something clearly as bad as this has slipped through the net?
We'll talk more about that. It's a historic day. What's the husband of Kamala Harris called? Doug
Ermoff.
He's going around.
The second husband.
Yeah, it's not anymore. He's hugging Clinton. Jill Biden's being ignored by everybody. This is the rotunda. They've come inside, as I said, for the inauguration today because of the weather.
Pretty nippy out there, yeah.
It's interesting. The First Lady, as she still is, Jill Biden, is stood in a blue coat in the rotunda as, and we can this is an exclusive, as removal vans around the back of the White House, moving them out. Can I ask you about Joe Biden? Extraordinary to think that 4 years ago and 2 weeks, Donald Trump was literally run out of Washington, D.C. with the lowest approval rating ever. This is some comeback. And in fact, somebody told me today, Joe Biden is 2 points worse off. There's no legacy for Joe Biden, is there?
I mean, look,
Although he beat Trump, he'll be telling everybody.
He was the only person that's ever beat Trump, which was his biggest defence for staying as the candidate. You know, the American economy, we'd give a left arm for some of those growth figures they've been having recently. They have energy independence that we do not have. But you can argue that was started under Donald Trump more so than Joe Biden. Look, he has not had a good run since. I think he's being slightly unfairly blamed for, should he have got out of the way quicker? Should there have been open primary? But the Democrats need to share the blame for that stitch-up that put Kamala Harris in, because she was rubbish.
Oh, she was beyond rubbish, man.
She was a terrible candidate.
But you know what? I'm convinced he's as happy as Larry. This is
he keeps smiling, doesn't he?
He keeps smiling because I think he's got the mindset, Joe Biden, now of, you know what? I'm the only one that beat him, and you got rid of me, and you put that useless bloody woman in. So I'm going to go to my.
You saw the footage the other week at the funeral, Jimmy Carter's funeral, when they had the power brokers of the Democrat Party. You got the Clintons, you got the Bidens, you got the Harrises. None of them wanted to speak to each other. There's clearly a huge amount of bad blood. And also, look, the fact Michelle Obama won't even bother to turn up.
Now, let's talk about that. Is it Divorce? Is somebody ill? Does she hate him that much?
I suspect she just doesn't want anything to do with it.
So do we admire
Donald Trump didn't turn up last time to Joe Biden's, and you think, what's the... I suspect she's probably just, thinks, why should I grin and bear it?
This is just in. The King has sent a personal message of congratulations to President Donald Trump on his inauguration, reflecting on the enduring special relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States. Buckingham Palace has just announced. Rex Starmer's been on the phone going, I ain't going to get a visit. I'm going to be tariffed up to me whatsits. Can you please get the King to send him a message?
I think we'll be all right. Look, Donald Trump clearly has a soft spot for Britain, and he has a soft spot.
I think he'll come on a state visit and he won't even see Starmer.
Yeah, he will.
No, he'll see the King.
I think we'll see Starmer. We'll see Starmer out there sooner rather than later.
Have you ever been to anything like this? Have you ever been to an inauguration?
I don't think so, no. We're downstairs doing never mind the ballots from London here. It kind of works in our time, this, and also, the press aren't going to get anywhere near what's going on, especially now it's indoors. I've never been to one of them. I think the US election was unlike no other. That was an astonishing year. The 2 assassinations, 3 candidates.
People tell me that he won it when he was first, the attempted assassination.
Well,
Would you believe that?
I remember thinking, looking at that footage of him standing there fist bumping, saying fight, 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 and that was probably the most iconic image of any electoral cycle that I can remember, and it would have been hard pushed to beat him after that. I think he won it the day that Joe Biden appeared in that early debate, and he won it with the line, I don't know what that guy's saying, and I'm not sure he does either.
That
was a knockout blow.
Pictures on screen now of Baron Trump. He's about 8'7". They're already saying that he'll be a president one day.
Well, America looks like it's going down a sort of more regal imperial way, so,
Isn't that the whole of the world's going right, and we're just this island of socialist claptrap?
Well, you could argue that we went right first and then got we were out of sync with the global realignment. But
what do you make of these executive orders? You might know this much better than us. What is the difference between an executive order and a law?
Well, look, it's essentially a presidential decree. Ministers can do a similar thing in this country, which is a sort of standing order that sort of just it's raw, untrammeled executive power. They can get challenged in the courts. And that's when. But
hasn't he got the court screwed up?
Well, exactly. But he does control. He controls the Senate. He controls the House. Anyway, it's stuff that is already. It's actually mostly done to repeal things that have already.
There's it. I'm just giving you commentary. We're seeing all the famous faces in the rotunda. Elon Musk front and centre. Zuckerberg front and centre.
Yeah, Jeff
Bezos and the soon-to-be Mrs. Bezos, who spent a lot of money.
And a little birdie tells me from Washington that while Nigel Farage isn't in the rotunda, Boris Johnson is.
Why is Farage not in the rotunda?
Well, I think Boris has got a better ticket. He was there at the private church service for prayers as well. So Boris and Musk are close. Boris and Trump have, remained in contact. But interesting little vignette there.
What would you say about these executive orders? Because somebody was telling me before we came on, there's a chance that he'll say this is a revolution of common sense, which will obviously sue him and say you've used that from talk.
If you look at it,
these no pronouns in federal buildings and close the border and mass deportation of immigrants.
It's basically literally what lots of people in this country have been calling for: a rowing back on green stuff, more energy independence, more drilling. Where just as Britain's turning our back on our massive resources in the North Sea, Donald Trump's going to drill Alaska. He's getting rid of the electric car mandates, which would have been a big issue for us here. The idea that we're all going to have electric cars by 2035. Nonsense. Never going to be able to hit it. The infrastructure won't be in place, and the car companies can't afford to make them into that target. So that's going. As you said, all the DEI stuff, the rowing back the woke agenda. People used to say Donald Trump said things that we all think but couldn't say, and this is you're going to see him do it. Where I think there's going to be some controversy today, I think if he does pardon the protesters who were in that very room that he's now being inaugurated, I wonder whether he's actually quite enjoying the fact he's going to be inaugurated inside the Capitol, because the last time we saw that room on our TV screens in such a big way was when Donald Trump supporters were literally seizing, his lowest moment. And
I will go back to 2016, which is what you said. When he beat Clinton, he didn't win the popular vote. He won it almost on his technicality because of Florida. And you're right. We were saying earlier, there was this sort of feeling of like, who is this outsider? And I remember the speech, and he said, this isn't about these political elites here. This is about there's a whole bunch of people walking out now. We've got the new First Lady coming. That's J.D. Vance's wife, and Melania. Melania's walking out with it, but you can't see her head.
She looks like Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, doesn't she? That hat looks like when Julia Roberts goes to the polo.
Is that your favourite? Is that your favourite? You like that, didn't you?
Great film.
That or Notting Hill?
Oh, no, Pretty Woman.
Love Actually?
Terrible film. Awful.
Ghastly,
Woman? Awful film. Pretty Woman's a great film.
Really?
Love Actually, terrible.
Julia Roberts, I was very excited about Julia Roberts, and then she had arm hair, and I was very put off for quite a while. I'm just being honest.
Melania Trump, all the topics today,
Trump presumably hasn't got any arm hair. She's walking in now with, I guess, a high-ranking official.
That's a soldier. US Marine that's guiding her to her seat. But what a hat she's wearing.
She's an extraordinary woman.
A 1950s brimmed hat.
So everybody comes out. First of all, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance, I thought he would have been done by now. Has he not been done? I think it's going to be late because he's going to be sworn in, and then Donald Trump. Just before you go, what do you think the speech will be? Because the thing about Donald Trump's speeches, they go complete. I mean, there was that he held one in the golf club, which was supposed to be 10 minutes. It went on for an hour and 40. Can you imagine?
The one in 2017, the first speech was mental, as George W. Bush said. That was some weird S star T.
Star T.
There we go. See, I didn't swear. You didn't have to dump me.
I dragged you down.
You didn't have to dump me off the airwaves this time. Look, that was a weird speech. When he's talking about American carnage. Look, I think Donald Trump doesn't have to stand for re-election again. We're told he's going to talk about unity, strength, and fairness, but they're unity, strength, and fairness on Donald Trump's terms. Fairness, in his eyes, is maybe getting some revenge on the people that spent the last 4 years using lawfare to try and stop this very moment from happening. So, look, unity and strength. Will we see a slight different Donald Trump? Yes, I think so. He's not as paranoid as he is anymore, as he once was.
No.
He's not as insecure.
No.
He won the popular vote. He won comprehensively. He's not going to have to spend the first 2 years of his presidency justifying being in the White House.
Says, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christopher Dean to sing, presumably, the national anthem. I thought he was a skater. Jane Torval and Christopher Dean. What's happened there? This doesn't look like...
different one. I want the Village People back out. That was great. Did you see that last night?
I don't know.
Trump on stage with the Village People. I know.
Trump dances worse than me, and yet the whole of America loves it,
But it has become a thing now. I have to say, I was at a party, and the Trump dance was a thing on Saturday night.
I reckon. Let's have a listen to the singing. Let's have a dip into the singing. Christopher Dean.
I will be. Oh, America, no weeping. Let there be no
as he sings. I wish they'd tell us. Oh, Joe Biden, in his final act as the 46th President of the United States, is walking out. And Kamala Harris, who does not look happy. She's next to him. She's all in black. They are being led out into the rotunda as... I don't think it's the national anthem, it's just some bloke singing karaoke. The United States President and Vice President... Harry, again, he looks happy that it's over, Biden. It's
I mean, he's had a rough old ride. I mean, it was a pretty humiliating exit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he's fuming. He is angry, but also slightly, you know. Do we know what Joe Biden you get on each day? So.
Do you know what? Actually, I should say this before he loses his job. I used to be really angry. And then I got angry with the people who covered this up, including his wife, because I think it was unfair to the man in terms of his health. He gave 50 years of good service to America.
It's a hard
Believe him,
impossible thing to walk away from as well, though. How do you walk away from the most powerful office in the land when you think you're being stitched up?
Yeah, presumably.
It's tricky. It is tricky, but you know, they only have themselves to blame.
JD Vance is walking out. I know you've got stuff to do, Harry. We are forever grateful for the very small fee that we give you.
Always a pleasure.
Never a chore. And you're off to do television now.
We're doing a bit of never mind the ballots. We've got some interesting guests. We've got some salty liberal tears. We've got some MAGA hats. We've got the full spectrum covered.
Did you see Suella Braverman over there today?
Yes.
Do you want to know what I found out about her name?
I think I know what you're going to tell me.
So at a Christmas party, she said to me, I said, very nice to meet you, Swellen. And she said, do you know that I was actually born Swellen because my mother was a massive fan of Dallas, but I didn't want to be called Sue Ellen. So,
so she invented the name.
I knew you'd know that.
I know.
25 to 5, Harry Cole, thank you so much indeed. 0344 499 1000. What do you make of this? The inauguration of Donald Trump, soon to be the 47th President of the United States. What a comeback. Literally, as we said, 4 years ago, he was run out of Washington, D.C. with the lowest approval rating in American political history. He is back today. Donald Trump is waiting to walk out the rotunda. They're doing it inside today because of this vortex, this inclement, really cold weather that's hit the United States. And as Harry Cole, political editor of The Sun, just said, there'll be some irony that it was 4 years ago that this was the very building, place that was stormed by what they called Trump fans. All of us are waiting for the inauguration speech. All of us are wondering what he's going to say. All of us are wondering, in his first day in power, all these executive orders. If you are watching on YouTube, the last few dignitaries are walking through the crypt into the joint congressional building, which is the rotunda, and getting ready for the inauguration of Donald Trump. But of course, there is a big ceremony. It includes also JD Vance, the Vice President-elect, who will also be inaugurated. Delighted now to welcome Errol Moorcoach, the spokesman for Republicans overseas, along with Greg Swenson-Claus. Errol, good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
I bet you're doing well. It literally, you join us at the point, and we're looking at these pictures now. Everybody is out, and we are just waiting for Donald Trump. Explain in your words. Look at the smile on your face. There he is. The big man is walking towards the rotunda in a purple tie. Donald Trump on his own, about to be inaugurated as the 47th President of the United States. Some comeback, Errol, with respect.
Oh, yeah. Big comeback for Donald Trump, a big comeback for America, and I'll say a big comeback for every one of the men and women in this country who for the last 8 to 10 years were castigated, spit on, called every single dirty word in the book. I'm not going to mention them now going forward. And nobody broke the faith. Nobody gave up. Nobody listened to the lies they told us about what we saw with our own eyes. And now here is the redemption arc. The rise, the fall, the redemption. It's the Donald Trump story. It's the American success story. And now we have a chance. We have galvanized the entire country behind us. We are the party of the working class. We are the party of the everyday American. Donald Trump has a mandate from the Senate, from the House, from the majority of the popular vote in the Supreme Court, obviously as the executive branch. And now it's an amazing time for us to celebrate this and then get to work fulfilling those promises we made to Americans, whether it be no tax on tips, ending foreign wars, using tariffs, deportations. Everything is going to be a day one, hit the ground running. There is not 8 years here. There is no re-campaigning that we need to do 2 years in. We have 4 years of driven, focused, make America great again ideology. And I'm so proud to be here. And I'm so proud to have been through this fight with the president, playing a small role. And I think every American feels the same way. I know Greg, our friend of the show, is in D.C. right now. I'm pretty jealous. He's probably in the room right there. And so maybe one day I'll get in.
Just to give commentary, this is the moment in the rotunda when Donald Trump, the 47th President of the United States, is about to come out to be inaugurated. The Honourable President of the House Economic Leaders, Democratic leader in the Senate majority is coming out. It's an extraordinary moment, actually, and it's very... I mean, we're famous in the United Kingdom for pageantry, but this is something else. Do you think it loses something being inside rather than out, Errol?
Actually, I don't. I think that, everything, like the world is a stage, right? And set design is a huge part of presentation. And being able to manage these factors and putting it into a place, as on your last segment you had talked about, this is where they had declared our supporters insurrectionists and all of these things. And to see everybody back in that room...
Can I just say I'm jumping in for a reason? President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have just come out to wide applause. She still looks hacked off with life. She doesn't look very happy at all, but that doesn't bother me in the slightest bit. Joe Biden's looking... I think he looks relieved, Errol. Do you know what I mean?
Oh. Yo, he looks thrilled. I mean, this man has gone through the gauntlet in his own way. And at the very end, after getting 15, 16 million votes, winning the primary, he was effectively like soft cooed by his own party and thrown to the side. And so the fact that he came in and in his mind, he made a sacrifice for this country. He thought that he was ending something very awful, which is our movement. In the end, he did not achieve that.
Do you know why I think he's smiling? I think he's smiling because to his grave he'll be able to say, and I quote, "I beat him, you got rid of me, and she didn't, so you can do one. I'm going to sit at the beach." We are standing by for Donald Trump. There's all sorts of people coming out. This inauguration, am I right in saying, and I will keep jumping in on you, Errol, that the Vice President J.D. Vance will be sworn in first? Is that right?
Yes, I believe that is correct. I'm a little bit too excited today to be 100% clear on my.
Learn your lines, man. Learn your lines. What's wrong with you? Come on.
I know. I do believe he's first. And it's a great moment actually for the millennials. This is our first millennial candidate. So I'm a millennial.
J.D. Vance, Vice President-elect, is walking out now, shaking everybody by the hands. Joe Biden ignored Kamala Harris, going to stand next to his wife. And does the president come out before he's inaugurated as well, J.D. Vance? Do you know that? Does anybody know that around here?
Yeah, he will be announced, and then he should come out based on the procedure that I've seen before. However, perhaps Donald Trump rewrote the procedures for himself.
Yes. I mean, it is extraordinary. J.D. Vance smiling broadly, his wife looking very proud, all of the Democratic side looking completely hacked off with life, all of Donald Trump's side, all in red ties, of course, blue suits, white shirts. He, of course, isn't. He's in a purple one. Everybody waiting for the main man now. You're obviously happy. There's many people, though, in America who didn't vote for Trump. There's many people across the world who think this is the worst day for democracy. Very briefly, explain why you disagree with that.
Well, if it's the worst day for democracy, why did a democratic process happen? How did somebody get elected, then be removed from power in a fair election, and then win back? This is how democracy works. It's push and pull. And to people who didn't vote for us, I'll say this. 8 out of the 10 richest counties, they voted Democrat. The majority of billionaires voted Democrat. Democrats outraised us 2-1. We're the party of the working class. We're here to deliver our promises to working people, and we're going to stop these foreign wars. That's going to bring money back.
Errol, we're gonna.
Here we go.
Errol, we're gonna cross. I think we're almost there. I've never known. This is longer than queuing for the bathroom in my house with all the kids. We want to cross.
Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, that's right. We'll cross when Donald Trump comes out. There's a sergeant in arms, there's a Senate majority, there's a congressional committee. Good Lord, there's loads of them. Very soon he will come out, the main man. I wonder what he's doing. Checking his phone, playing Angry Birds. What do you think he's doing?
I'm sure he's getting a few last truths on there, perhaps pumping a few crypto coins. He can't do it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. I reckon he's tweeting, just about to walk out and take over the world. Do one, Biden, I'm in charge. Something like that.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the man is a one-man, one-line factory. He makes historical moments on his phone all the time, so probably that's what he's up to. Honestly, I think he's taking a deep breath and just taking it all in. He's been through the gauntlet. He's had lawfare against him, assassinations attempts against him, treacherous.
Here we
people.
go. Hold on a second, Errol. It says, and now the man whose life has changed today, the president-elect, who will assume... Should we go live to this? Let's just go live, Errol, please, if we can.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
Trump walking out to tremendous applause, tried to kiss his wife and couldn't get under a hat. Shaking warmly Joe Biden's hand. His son has gone to J.D. Vance. The only man not in a red tie, interesting, in purple. Looks very calm, saying thank you. Smiling, looking across at the Democrats and going, ha, beat you. No, he's not saying that at all. He looks a much calmer proposition than the man who, as we talked in 2017, was almost like a Washington outsider. He's done it. He lost. Lowest point was run out of Washington. And whatever you make of the politics of Donald Trump, it is some political comeback. We're waiting for the inauguration of both J.D. Vance and him. Melania, just behind him. Barron Trump as well, if you're watching on YouTube. Other dignitaries from across the world. But, of course, not Keir Starmer. He wasn't invited. We've just heard, actually, if you're just tuning in, we had an exclusive from Harry Cole that Nigel Farage is not in the rotunda, but Boris Johnson is. Boris Johnson was also at the religious ceremony at the church. Everybody's taking their seat now. Here we go. He looks very calm, Trump. Talking to J.D. Vance. Errol, can I thank you for now? We might well come back to you. Errol Moore-Coates, Republican Overseas. Errol, thank you very much indeed. 4:45. Your thoughts, if you're listening to this, people, whatever you think. Are you pro-Trump, anti-Trump? Do you think it's what we need? Do you think it's what the world doesn't need? 0344 499 1000. We'll obviously take the inauguration ceremony and we'll take Donald Trump's speech. Just go live.
Chairwoman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 60th presidential inauguration. Today, President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect Vance will take their oaths of office, and we will witness the peaceful transfer of power at the heart of our democracy. For the past year, I've chaired the inaugural ceremony committee, which includes the leadership of Congress from both parties. We thank the committee and Capitol staff and law enforcement who worked so hard over the last year, and especially the last 3 days. You've done a beautiful job, and you have shown grace under pressure. Our theme this year is our enduring democracy. The presence of so many presidents and vice presidents here today is truly a testament to that endurance. We welcome President Biden and Dr. Biden. We welcome Vice President Harris and Doug Emhoff, President Obama, President Clinton and Secretary Clinton, President Bush and Laura Bush, Vice President Pence, Vice President Quayle and Marilyn Quayle. The justices of the United States Supreme Court are with us, all 9 of them, I counted, and of course, the Trump and Vance families. This ceremony marks what will soon be 250 years of our democracy. It is the moment when leaders, elevated by the will of the people, promise to be faithful to our Constitution, to cherish and defend it. It is the moment when they become, as we all should be, the guardians of our country. Through war and peace, through adversity and prosperity, we hold this inauguration every 4 years, and today it falls on Martin Luther King Day. A further reminder that we must strive to uphold the values enshrined in our Constitution, the freedoms, the liberties, and, as is inscribed on the entrance of the United States Supreme Court, equal justice under law. But what makes this moment more than a passing ceremony is all who are watching it across the country, the people of this nation, the ordinary people doing extraordinary things. President Kennedy, who at one point worked as a senator in this building and would often walk through this very rotunda, once said, "In a democracy, every citizen, regardless of interest in politics, holds office. Every one of us is in a position of responsibility." With that responsibility of citizenship comes an obligation not to seek out malice, as President Lincoln once reminded us, but to view others with a generosity of spirit despite our differences. With that responsibility of leadership comes an obligation to stand our ground when we must and find common ground when we can. With everything swirling around us, the hot mess of division, it is on all of us, to quote an incredible songwriter who just happened to be born in my state, to ensure that our nation's democracy is our shelter from the storm. There's a reason this ceremony takes place at the Capitol. In other countries, it might be in a presidential palace or a gilded executive office building. Here, it is traditionally held at the Capitol, the People's House. It is a fitting reminder of the system of checks and balances that is the very foundation of our government, 3 equal branches of government. That is how, for nearly 250 years, our great American experiment, grounded in the rule of law, has endured. So, as we inaugurate a new president and vice president, let us remember that the power of those in this room comes from the people. The construction workers who build our country, the teachers and healthcare workers who nurture us, the troops defending our freedoms, and yes, the firefighters in Los Angeles putting themselves on the line for us. Our democracy's strength and grit must match theirs. May God bless our nation. Thank you.
So if you are watching on YouTube, you'll see that all the main players are in the rotunda. That was a description as to what will happen with the inauguration from a senator. If you could just drop that sound for a bit. We're waiting, of course, for J.D. Vance, Vice President-elect, to be inaugurated, followed by Donald Trump. When Donald Trump has been inaugurated, place his hand on the Bible, he will make a speech. We will take that live on Talk. I know it's a very different show today, but it is actually a truly monumental moment for the world. Whether you like him or you hate him, Donald Trump, I have to say, is on the front of every single newspaper, is at the forefront of every single news organisation across the world. Delighted to be joined now very quickly by a fellow of the UCL Centre for US Politics, Tom Packer. Tom, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
I'm well. Good to hear from you, Jeremy.
Please forgive me, but we'll be in and out, in and out, in and out, because we want to make sure we take this. What do you make of what you've seen so far? It looks to me like a calmer Donald Trump. We're being told he's going to talk about unity, strength and fairness, as well as destroying Joe Biden's legacy within the first few hours. What's your take on it, Tom?
I predicted he'd be like that, and the early leaks seem to fit in with that. I mean, like even more than most presidents, look at what he does, don't look at what he says. People often get very hysterical about his rhetoric, and then when he says something a bit softer, they get very reassured. And I think both are mistakes. Like, you know, ultimately with Donald Trump, he says a lot of words, says lots of very aggressive things like the guy on the bar, but he doesn't necessarily live up to them. See what he says. I thought it was actually very interesting what Amy Klobuchar, who's a Democratic senator, was doing, introducing it. There was possibly a few very subtle digs, but one of the striking things has been the Democrats have tried, perhaps partly in response to Trump's rejection of the result last time, to look like they're trying to cooperate with the transition government, to be cooperative, to emphasize unity. They're moved away from this constantly trying to demonize Trump as the greatest possible threat to America. Partly, I think, because they haven't seen it, partly because they don't think it's worked politically. They've lost the election anyway. And I thought one saw that in her. I thought very good speech.
I agree. It's quite interesting. We're watching on YouTube, and of course we're performing on that and the radio. Kamala Harris looks more hacked off than anybody has ever looked hacked off. And through it all, you've got Joe Biden smiling. And I'm absolutely insistent to anybody and everybody who comes on the show today, Tom, that he's smiling because half of him's like, I'm out of here, thank God for that. But the other half is, I'm the only one that beat him and you got rid of me. I told you, you can all do one. Do you agree with me on that?
There might be something in that, at least how Joe Biden is thinking about things. I mean, he is also just a better politician than Kamala Harris, and he didn't lose the election, so it's easier to put on a brave face. I personally don't think she looks too bad, but I agree he looks very sort of calm and happy. Of course, he has decades of experience of these kinds of events.
What are you expecting from Donald Trump's speech today? Do these executive orders, do you think that they will be as cutting and as quick as people are saying, or not?
I think they probably will be. I think there'll probably also be a few that surprise us. I just think the Trump administration has always leaked like a...
Do you think that he will pardon the people from the Capitol riots in 2016?
I think that's very interesting. I think he will pardon some of them.
Okay.
I think one thing that hasn't been talked of enough, these needs to be important distinctions. Some of these people just walked in when the thing was open, right? So, and they were prosecuted quite seriously when people who actually closed down congressional hearings, say the Kavanaugh hearings for justice, who are disrupting them, don't. Others of them were doing things like hitting the police and so forth. I suspect his pardons will be more in the first half, and I worry that things got so polarized that the first type of pardons, which are quite reasonable, might just be treated the same way on both sides as the latter kind, which really would be a very serious precedent. People can't be allowed to just be pardoned if they attack the police during a transition of office. And I think one needs to be, there's thousands of these convictions. They vary a lot in how serious the crimes are and how appropriate the prosecutions were. One shouldn't just treat them as a unity.
And just the speech in general, because I want to go to a caller. Don't go anywhere, Tom. I'm going to stay with us. But what do you expect it to be long? Do you expect it to be incisive? Do you think it's rambling Trump, or do you think he will be focused?
I think they're making huge effort to be as professional as possible, so I think it will be on the rambling side, but it's still Trump. Don't forget his speech at the National Convention was supposed to be very incisive and then rambled, so there will be...
Say what you want, though. All of us can say what we want. The fact of the matter is, this man is an enigma. He's managed to win the common vote 4 years ago, run out of town, returning, having won the popular vote. He's got the Senate, he's got the House of Representatives. Putin saying welcome. He said, if you don't sort out the Middle East hostages in a week, I'll unleash hell. That's all done. He's just one of those people, but it will be very interesting to see how it unfolds. Don't go anywhere. You stay with me. I'm going to Hereford. Chris, you're on Talk Drive, but literally I'll have to cut you off if they start speaking. What do you want to say? Go.
Just a quick one. Why Donald Trump was being inaugurated, he's putting his country first. And that's what it's all about. I don't like some of the orders, some of the decisions he's going to make, I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, he's putting his country first and his voters first. And if Keir Starmer could have done that, basically, that's what I really think.
I couldn't agree with you more, actually. And thank you, Chris. Bringing Tom Packer back in, it's very interesting because one of the debates that started in this country on the back of Trump is that actually, I was talking the other day about a message I got from somebody, and the person said, imagine voting for somebody who might not always say the things that you like or the press likes, but actually wants to make you better off financially, safer, and wants to make your country bigger on the world stage and defend your country and stop allowing people coming into it who haven't got anything to give. And I wonder whether Donald Trump, I think this is a really important moment for the world, Tom Packer, don't you?
I mean, I think what he does when he's in will be a very important moment. I don't think there's going to be any massive surprises today. I think there's a point, both you and your caller there, but I think there's almost two different points. One is the economics the last 4 years have been quite rough.
Yeah.
So I think there's a tendency for people to want to go back to a better economy. The other is the idea that most politicians don't prioritize too much the international community or things like immigration over national community and nationalism. And that's a huge part of Trump's appeal. And I think both of those would worry me if I was Keir Starmer, even though I think Keir Starmer might do okay with Trump. But that movement is not confined to the United States.
Do you really think he'll do all right with him? I
think he might well. They're certainly going to make a big effort. And it's been very noticeable how polite and cautious they've been this time. And I think that what we've seen with Trump inviting Boris Johnson rather than Farage, even though he knows Farage much better, is Trump is quite changeable, quite responsive, and if you're nice to him, he likes being nice to you.
That is actually quite interesting. Just for people who are tuning in, inside the Rotunda, and this ceremony is taking place in the Rotunda today because of the inclement weather in Washington, D.C. There's a vortex of bad weather that's hit, so they're doing it inside because of hundreds of thousands of people would be affected. It's quite interesting. We heard from Harry Cole. Nigel Farage, who's been at his rallies, who's really close, isn't inside the rotunda, but Boris Johnson is, and he was also invited, Boris Johnson, to the church service for a very, very few people. What do you make of that, though? Do you think it's relevant? Do you think it's... I mean, we had Elon Musk 3 weeks ago slagging off Nigel Farage, saying they need a new leader, which took everybody by storm, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it's... I mean, I shouldn't overread it. Obviously, British elections aren't decided by what Americans like. Like, you know, Barack Obama warned people not to vote for Brexit, and that didn't stop people voting for Brexit. So, and Donald Trump and even more Elon Musk aren't that popular in this country. So I know lots of the callers here love him, but that's not the majority view. But I do think it means quite a bit for how Trump participates and behaves. So, you know, I think in some ways Boris Johnson is actually more like Donald Trump, including the fact that neither of them as right-wing as their enemies think they are. I also think it does show that ultimately Trump loves celebrities. A, loves celebrities. B, loves people who he feels are a bit like him. And C, likes people he feels are positive about him. So if you're world leader, and I think people like Zelensky know this, and you should see this in what they're talking, the president of Ukraine, and you're nice to Trump, and Trump thinks it suits his interests, you could get on surprisingly well when people don't think you will.
OK, listen, we've got the Vice President's inaugural oath about to be taken. Tom, for now, thank you. Just to bear in mind, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see this. We're inside the Rotunda in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. This is J.D. Vance. I believe his 2 sons are walking towards the lectern in smart little suits. Oh, and a daughter, and a nanny, and the wife. He's about to be inaugurated as Vice President. Let's go over to the Rotunda in Washington, D.C. when nobody's speaking. It's just, this is live. This is what's going to happen now. And I've got to speak until he starts speaking, which is absolutely
Please raise your
fine.
right hand and repeat after me. I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith.
That I will bear true faith.
And allegiance to the same.
And allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge.
The duties of the office.
The duties of the office.
On which I am about to enter.
On which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
Well, that is J.D. Vance has taken the oath of office. Kamala Harris is no longer the Vice President of the United States. And Joe Biden has got the biggest smile you've ever seen in his life. J.D. Vance's family are with him on stage, Donald Trump clapping behind. Vice President Vance, that is now official. We wait for now the inauguration of Donald J. Trump. He's just grabbing Vance and saying, well done, fantastic.
Chief Justice Roberts to administer the presidential oath of office.
Here we go. So we're now, it's extraordinary how this works. If you're watching this, people have got to move seats. They've got to get rid of J.D. Vance's family and the kids.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
That's the moment many, many Americans have been waiting for, and many haven't. Donald Trump is the 47th President of the United States. Joe Biden comes forward and shakes his hand. He says, thank you, Joe. His family are there. They're all delighted. His daughters. There's now a gun salute. I'm guessing 47 gun salute, maybe, outside in the snow. Music playing. His sons are there on stage. If you're watching this, Barron, Donald Jr. He's now finally managed to kiss Melania by getting underneath the hat, and he's pointing. It's a 21 gun salute. You're not helping me here at all, Ryan. Why would it be 21 against if he's the 47th president? Never mind. That's the facts. We're now waiting, which should be even more interesting, to hear his speech. He has made no secret of the fact that he is going to destroy Joe Biden's legacy within hours. He makes no secret of the fact that he is going to hit the ground running. This isn't about re-election. This is about 4 years with lots to be done. His family incredibly proud. We'll try and time this. I'll read some messages. This is from John Reimer from Angus. I wonder whether the most worried people in the world today is the Conservative Party in the UK. If Donald Trump, after a year, is an outstanding success, they will have to move considerably to the right to get elected or doff their cap to reform. Interesting. Hello to Rachel. I wish we had a Trump. If I was younger, I'd emigrate to the US right now. Hello to Gemma Atkinson. Please put your hands together for Donald Trump. Pitt. Oh, there you go. Well done. Very good. Ted or Tad Davison. Jezza, I'm surprised Mike Pence is there. This, of course, was Donald Trump's vice president last time around after his treachery of 4 years ago. He cut a lonely figure and looks as welcome as a... Well, this is a fart in a diving suit, but I'm not sure you should put that on, but there we go. Afternoon, Jez. I look at the United States and I'm filled with so much happiness and joy, then quickly filled by anger and utter despair when I look at what the hell we've got and have to deal with for the next 5 years. The difficulty we're trying to do this is I've got no sound from Washington. We've got some army people marching towards the set now. Michael, bring on Mr. Trump as soon as possible. I'm very jealous. Watched a YouTube video. They have to have the White House emptied, repainted and refurnished in 6 hours, including all food and snacks. Repainted in 6 hours. I really, really want those men to work in my house. What is it? Just gone 5:05. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive. Tom Packer, fellow of the UCL Centre for US Politics, still with me. Donald Trump is the 47th President of the United States. We're waiting for his inauguration speech. What did you make of it, Tom?
I thought, yeah, it's always impressive the way they do these things so efficiently. I thought they were both very impressive. One interesting personal touch was J.D. Vance was sworn in by Justice Kavanaugh, who was very controversially accused of certain offences when Trump nominated him for the Supreme Court. And also, interestingly, J.D. Vance's wife, Usha Vance, clerked, which is kind of assistant for J.D. Vance. So they picked the Supreme Court justice, who's both most associated with Trump's last term, and also has a personal link to J.D. Vance. It reminds you that J.D. Vance is often talked about some sort of barbarian outsider, and he's got some very sort of provocative and outsider views and a tough background, but he's also a very skilled member of the American meritocracy, and I think would play a very important role in the Trump administration, like actually Mike Pence did in the last administration.
Talking of J.D. Vance, is he the natural heir in 4 years' time?
Well, I think he has at this point to be the favourite for the Republican nomination. But A, that doesn't mean he'll win. Yep. Virtually no one, certainly not me, thought Trump was the favourite when he ran the first time in 2016. And secondly, we'll see how popular Trump is in 4 years. It's all very easy to be very popular when you're coming in. But as Keir Starmer has found, life can be very difficult and popularity can move against you. And it would not surprise me if the same happened to some degree with Mr. Trump in the next president.
I would only say that, and you and I might disagree on several things and agree on others. I would say, and unless I'm totally wrong, that Donald Trump has a plan. I don't think Keir Starmer's got any bloody plan at all. I think he is reactive rather than proactive. I think Donald Trump, whether we like it or loathe it, is going to be absolutely switched on from day one, hour one, minute one.
Is the plan going to succeed?
Yeah.
And secondly, one very important thing to remember is Keir Starmer, the way the British system works, has a huge majority. So within the British system, can do more.
You and I disagree. I think his majority is way for thin. I think if he carries on the way he's going, I think he'll be out.
He can pass laws.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has a tiny majority in Congress. They're elected independently. He's going to struggle to pass a lot of his agenda. That's why there's so much emphasis in the executive orders.
Yeah.
But as to what you could do that without passing legislation. And that a lot of what we're going to see, I think, over the next 6 months is Congress pushing back on Trump and Trump struggling to get bits of his agenda through.
But he's got Congress and Senate under Republican control, hasn't he?
No, but it's a very slim majority, and a lot of those Republicans aren't necessarily that reliable, particularly if they start worrying about re-election. So they aren't necessarily going to pass it. Like Joe Biden had a lot of trouble passing his legislation with a very thin Democratic majority, and Donald Trump will have similar problems.
What did you make of Joe Biden's presidency in small terms, just because we've got to make sure we don't miss this inauguration speech?
I mean, I thought in many ways it was very disappointing. He had natural ability to bring people together, to try and deal with some of the long-term fiscal problems, and possibly partly because he's got so frail, even though I think some people exaggerate that, he ended up being very dominated by his age, taking a very kind of aggressive Democratic Party agenda, which created a massive backlash, and there was a huge amount of complacency about it within the Democratic Party, that their views were more popular than they will, and that's why half of Americans want to deport all illegal immigrants, and Donald Trump is president again. They overreached, and this is the kind of thing that it can bring you.
Tom Packer, you're a good man. Thank you so much indeed for taking part. Fellow of the UCL Centre for US Politics. What is it, 7 minutes past 5? We're live across the UK with Talk. So drive time's on. We are standing by to take Donald J. Trump's inauguration speech. At the moment, there's a band and a choir singing inside that rotunda. This is inside the Capitol building on Capitol Hill. Inside today because of the awful weather in America, up to -20. There were concerns about the crowd, so it's inside. The irony, some will get angry with me for saying this, the irony was the last time we saw the rotunda on television. Of course, it was being stormed by Trump supporters 4 years ago when he questioned the validity of the 2020 election result. But that stood. Joe Biden has been president. He's now out. He's smiling. Kamala Harris is not smiling at all. I believe we're standing by. Here we go.
President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you very much, everybody. Well, thank you very, very much. Vice President Vance, Speaker Johnson, Senator Thune, Chief Justice Roberts, Justices of the United States Supreme Court, President Clinton, President Bush, President Obama, President Biden, Vice President Harris, and my fellow citizens. The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end. And our top priority will be to create a nation that is proud, prosperous, and free. America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. I return to the presidency confident and optimistic that we are at the start of a thrilling new era of national success. A tide of change is sweeping the country, sunlight is pouring over the entire world, and America has the chance to seize this opportunity like never before. But first, we must be honest about the challenges we face. While they are plentiful, they will be annihilated by this great momentum that the world is now witnessing in the United States of America. As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency, as recently shown by the wonderful people of North Carolina, who've been treated so badly. And other states who are still suffering from a hurricane that took place many months ago. Or more recently, Los Angeles, where we're watching fires still tragically burn from weeks ago without even a token of defense. They're raging through the houses and communities, even affecting some of the wealthiest and most powerful individuals in our country, some of whom are sitting here right now. They don't have a home any longer. That's interesting. But we can't let this happen. Everyone is unable to do anything about it. That's going to change. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. And we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country despite the love that we try so desperately to provide to them. All of this will change starting today, and it will change very quickly. My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom. From this moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government. Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That is why each day under our administration of American patriots, we will be working to meet every crisis with dignity and power and strength. We will move with purpose and speed to bring back hope, prosperity, safety, and peace for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. It is my hope that our recent presidential election will be remembered as the greatest and most consequential election in the history of our country. As our victory showed, the entire nation is rapidly unifying behind our agenda with dramatic increases in support from virtually every element of our society, young and old, men and women, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, urban, suburban, rural, and very importantly, we had a powerful win in all 7 swing states, and the popular vote, we won by millions of people. To the Black and Hispanic communities, I want to thank you for the tremendous outpouring of love and trust that you have shown me with your vote. We set records, and I will not forget it. I've heard your voices in the campaign, and I look forward to working with you in the years to come. Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true. Thank you. Thank you. National unity is now returning to America, and confidence and pride is soaring like never before. In everything we do, my administration will be inspired by a strong pursuit of excellence and unrelenting success. We will not forget our country. We will not forget our Constitution, and we will not forget our God. Can't do that. Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. And by invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. As Commander-in-Chief, I have no higher responsibility than to defend our country from threats and invasions, and that is exactly what I am going to do. We will do it at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. America will be a manufacturing nation once again, and we have something that no other manufacturing nation will ever have, the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we are going to use it. We will bring prices down, fill our strategic reserves up again, right to the top, and export American energy all over the world. We will be a rich nation again, and it is that liquid gold under our feet that will help to do it. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers. In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice. We will build automobiles in America again at a rate that nobody could have dreamt possible just a few years ago. And thank you to the auto workers of our nation for your inspiring vote of confidence. We did tremendously with their vote. I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before to restore competence and effectiveness to our federal government. My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker and a unifier. I'm pleased to say that as of yesterday, one day before I assumed office, the hostages in the Middle East are coming back home to their families. Thank you. America will reclaim its rightful place as the greatest, most powerful, most respected nation on earth, inspiring the awe and admiration of the entire world. A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. President McKinley made our country very rich through tariffs and through talent. He was a natural businessman and gave Teddy Roosevelt the money for many of the great things he did, including the Panama Canal, which has foolishly been given to the country of Panama after the United States. The United States, I mean, think of this, spent more money than ever spent on a project before and lost 38,000 lives in the building of the Panama Canal. We have been treated very badly from this foolish gift that should have never been made, and Panama's promise to us has been broken. The purpose of our deal and the spirit of our treaty has been totally violated. American ships are being severely overcharged and not treated fairly in any way, shape, or form, and that includes the United States Navy. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Above all, my message to Americans today is that it is time for us to once again act with courage, vigor, and the vitality of history's greatest civilization. So as we liberate our nation, we will lead it to new heights of victory and success. We will not be deterred. Together we will end the chronic disease epidemic and keep our children safe, healthy, and disease-free. The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation, and right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of comes close. Americans pushed thousands of miles through a rugged land of untamed wilderness. They crossed deserts, scaled mountains, braved untold dangers, won the Wild West, ended slavery, rescued millions from tyranny, lifted billions from poverty, harnessed electricity, split the atom, launched mankind into the heavens, and put the universe of human knowledge into the palm of the human hand. If we work together, there is nothing we cannot do and no dream we cannot achieve. Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. I stand before you now as proof that you should never believe that something is impossible to do. In America, the impossible is what we do best. From New York to Los Angeles, from Philadelphia to Phoenix, from Chicago to Miami, from Houston to right here in Washington, D.C., our country was forged and built by the generations of patriots who gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. They were farmers and soldiers, cowboys and factory workers, steel workers and coal miners, police officers and pioneers who pushed onward, marched forward, and let no obstacle defeat their spirit or their pride. Together they laid down the railroads, raised up the skyscrapers, built great highways, won 2 world wars, defeated fascism and communism, and triumphed over every single challenge that they faced. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. With your help, we will restore America promise, and we will rebuild the nation that we love, and we love it so much. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. We're going to win like never before. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. In recent years, our nation has suffered greatly, but we are going to bring it back and make it great again, greater than ever before. We will be a nation like no other, full of compassion, courage, and exceptionalism. Our power will stop all wars and bring a new spirit of unity to a world that has been angry, violent, and totally unpredictable. America will be respected again and admired again, including by people of religion, faith, and goodwill. We will be prosperous. We will be proud. We will be strong, and we will win like never before. We will not be conquered. We will not be intimidated. We will not be broken, and we will not fail. From this day on, the United States of America will be a free, sovereign, and independent nation. We will stand bravely. We will live proudly. We will dream boldly, and nothing will stand in our way because we are Americans. The future is ours, and our golden age has just begun. Thank you. God bless America. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, that was the inauguration speech of the now 47th President of the United States, word for word, Donald J. Trump. So much in there to digest. Thank you for all your text messages. I'm actually going to read some out straight away because there's been so many of you. In fact, I'll tell you what we'll do. Let's go to Isabel Oakeshott, who's been holding on brilliantly for us. Isabel, are you there?
I am, and I'm just completely wowed by that speech. I mean, what a incredibly strident agenda for change it is, full of hope and promise of a golden era. You know, this is the new dawn, all of that language, but lots of specifics too about sending in the armed forces to the border, stopping the tide of illegal immigration. And he talked about deporting literally millions of what he called, I think he called foreign aliens or something like that. Definitely the word aliens was used. So, I mean, an incredible speech. And I'm sure that many of our listeners will just be so impatient for the day that a politician delivers something very, very similar in our own country.
Let me just place, I mean, there's so much we can strip down, but for everybody who's a listener and a viewer of Talk, the radio station based on one thing and one thing only, I can exclusively reveal we are going to sue Donald J. Trump, because let me tell you, when Mike and Julian kept, long before I was here, there was one thing that was centred at Talk, which was the ability to talk amongst all the BS in the world about common sense. This is just what the 47th President of the United States of America said the next 4 years are going to be like, and by God, could we do with it here? Play it.
Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense.
It's all about common sense, Isabel, which we've been banging on for years, haven't we, on this station?
Well, we are the home of common sense, and it's not actually a kind of expression that's used in America much. So I just feel that somebody has just had a word to the wise of Trump, and he's perhaps just tuned in for a little bit and has picked up on the vibe here at the home of common sense. And as you say, there's so much in that speech, it's hard to know what to pick out.
Well, let's start with the tone, if we can. I'd like to do that with you. We're still watching the aftermath in that building, in the rotunda on the Capitol Hill, where Donald Trump has just been inaugurated, 47th President of the United States. Let's just, before we talk about him hitting out the executive orders, let's talk about the tone, because many, many people texting and saying, actually, this is really interesting. It's a different Donald Trump. Crystal says, I'm hearing a much stronger yet calmer man from 4 years ago. I'm cautiously optimistic. The last 4 years have been hell. Glad to be watching this here at the helm, Jez. It's very interesting.
I think he did seem very calm, but very determined. You know, it was a sort of a much more mature version, which doesn't mean it's not still going to be pretty mercurial. I felt you sort of almost wincing for the existing or the outgoing administration as he basically proceeded to say, in a nutshell, you guys, you know, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, all of you lot, you've basically destroyed our country. And here we are going to build it back up again. You failed, and we are going to create a new America, restore to what we should have been, everything that you got so wrong, we're now going to put right. I mean, he didn't spare their blushes, did he?
It's really interesting. Let's strip down some of the things that he said. I mean, he talked in general terms about, you know, Biden's era, his policies are gone, change is coming fast, our decline is over, we need to reclaim ourselves. There's a lot in it that really would resonate with the people that listen and watch talk, and also many, many people in this country who feel their voice isn't heard. As you quite rightly said, he said that he would quite literally sign an emergency order on the southern border, national emergency southern border, because of all the illegal migrants. The look on Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's face, but he explained it, as we've explained it for months and years on this station, which is, of course you do your best as a country, but when your own country is suffering, when services are not reaching the people who are paying their taxes, when your country is in the arms of these people who are providing nothing and taking advantage, something has to be done. That'll resonate with millions of people in the United Kingdom. I find myself listening to that, and listen, Donald Trump says some terrible things, but he's talking about dealing with a problem, which is what the American people, and please God as well he understands, Starmer or so, we need this as well, don't we?
100% we do. I mean, I would have said about 95% of that speech could be translated into what's going on here in the UK. Just to give a bit of an example, he picked out what's going on in schools in America, saying that our children, he said, the American children, for all the love that parents tried to give them, are being taught in the classroom to be ashamed of their own country and their history. Well, exactly the same is happening here with our attitudes in the left-wing establishment, attitudes to the British Empire and everything. So much of what we actually have good reason to be proud of. He talked about the failures of healthcare, talking about how record amounts of public money are going into America's healthcare system, which isn't just, by the way, funded by insurance, meaning that nobody gets any of it, you know, none of it is state provided. And he said, despite all of that, people aren't getting the quality of healthcare that they deserve. Well, that translates directly over to the UK, doesn't it? That invasion of illegal immigrants, which he says is a national emergency in America, many people here will agree that we have a national emergency with thousands of illegal immigrants crossing the channel every week. So there are parallels at every step of that speech with the UK. And I think that should truly frighten the Labour government in the UK.
Well, I completely agree. I completely agree. I mean, we talked about the southern borders. We've talked about schools. He said, I want to deliver a colourblind and merit-based society, which is music to anybody's ears. And then we just want to play this to everybody. Let's just remind ourselves of what Donald J. Trump said on the gender debate. Have a listen to this, Isabel.
I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Isabel, there's many people that will be offended by that, but I believe there'll be millions who go, that's what we need, some honesty. What do you make of that comment?
Look, there are only two genders, male and female. I reckon, I mean, it'd be nice to hear from some listeners that disagree, but most of our listeners, like most of the nation, basically believe that. You're either born a boy or a girl, and that's it. And isn't it wonderful to hear the new president just setting it out perfectly plainly? That's our official policy. All this stuff has gone way, way, way too far, and Trump has just stood up there and just chucked it all in the bin.
It was quite interesting watching, if you were watching on YouTube, people, it was interesting watching Biden and Kamala Harris as he was calm, but he was also quite incisive. Couple of things. He said, my life was saved for a reason. God wanted me to survive so that I could save America. He also said that he wants to plant the US flag on Mars during his administration, which caused Elon Musk to be jumping around and high-fiving on the platform. Some of those things people will go, is that possible? But you're right, when you talk about the basis of him saying, I mean, he said, drill, baby, drill. He called oil liquid gold. He said, this is an end to that green nonsense. We've got this money under our ground. This is what should be paying for our country to be better off. That also makes sense. In this country, we've got Ed Millipede, or whatever his name is, threatening to set up... I don't understand how this isn't common sense. I've said it for many years. I don't understand why we're... I think you're right. 95% of what he said, if you stood in England and somebody had the bravery to say that today, they'd be elected, wouldn't they?
Well, I mean, to be fair on Nigel Farage, he does say most of those things, and the way the polls are looking, he has got a little bit of a good chance.
Quickly, as you mentioned him, how do you respond to the fact that we exclusively revealed through Harry Cole that he wasn't in the rotunda? I thought he was close to Trump, but Boris Johnson was.
Well, I don't know how these sorts of things are worked out, and clearly there was a lot of a last-minute scramble because of the changed location, so something may have got lost in translation there, but I'll let Nigel explain that for himself. I'm sure he'll be able to shed some light.
Do you think that Donald Trump's quite obvious desire to end the woke rubbish that has been prevalent in America? I was reading something today that said that he's going to, and he said there's only going to be a man and a woman, or a boy or a girl, or male and female. I've heard that in federal buildings he'll ban all the pronoun stuff that we seem completely and utterly obsessed with in this country. Do you think any of this, just put ourselves in number 10 right now, Sir Keir Starmer apparently says the special relationship will endure, it's going to be fine, I'm going to go and visit Washington. Some people in America are saying, you're at the end of the queue, mate. Let me tell you, after sending people to support Kamala Harris, there's other people that will say all of this is overridden by the special relationship. But Starmer, if you look at Trudeau going, Trump coming in America, if you look at Europe, he's going to end up on his own, isn't he, Sir Keir Starmer? Because all of this woke rubbish is what this bloody Labour government want to continue with, isn't it?
Well, it's almost as if he's sort of out of sync with the rest of the political shifts in the rest of the West. And it's ironic that the UK has only pretty recently elected, although very grudgingly, this Labour administration. Remember how few people, the actual percentage of people that voted Labour was very, very low, because the way our system works, there he is with this so-called super majority. But I think you make a really important wider point, which is, does that type of politics, all that wokery and net zero nonsense and uncontrolled borders and all of that, does that begin to look really kind of crazy and out there in a few years' time when everybody else is doing the exact opposite? I think it will do.
I think it's a very interesting day. Love him or loathe him, the man has the gonads to stand there and say what he believes, and it was interesting to see, obviously, his supporters and his family there. Is there anything he didn't say? Is there anything that he didn't do that you were thinking would be there, or was it overall, in your opinion, because it seemed very constructed? He didn't ramble. It was on point, wasn't it?
Well, maybe that's what he didn't do. He didn't screw it up. He didn't, although he did go quite far, he didn't go too far. He didn't say anything outrageous. It was all laden with patriotism and something that must unite all Americans, as it would unite, hopefully, all of us, is patriotism. Time and again, it was all about, restoring America, make us again the greatest leaders of the free world. Well, whether or not you agree about the way to do that, that is a unifying message. And I think that will have resounded, and a lot of God as well in there, wasn't there? That really struck me. The whole ceremony is so laden with religion.
Yeah.
It's a reminder of just how strong Christianity is in America relative to where we are here in the UK. And again, that's very unifying.
I really appreciate you hanging around. I really appreciate all of your input. Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor for Now. Thank you very much indeed. I'm shooting to Cheshire. Matt's on the line. You've got 1 minute, Matt. What you got?
Although Trump is not the most talented speaker, in terms of its content, power and confidence, this is one of the best political speeches of my lifetime, encompassing almost every issue and exposing those that try to cheat and finish him. The resilience, steel is in stark contrast to the scrawny, bland and cowardly speeches of the shameful PM and our political figures. Trump has become a world statesman as well as a street fighter.
Do you know what, Matt? Honestly, Matt, I actually couldn't agree more. I think like most people, some of what he's said and done 4 years ago was unpalatable to many. There are many who will say that the cases he's lost and some of the accusations mean he shouldn't even be standing for office. But if you talk about grabbing the political initiative, and more importantly, for all politicians in the United Kingdom, two things: having the ability to listen to what people want, but more than that, having the balls, I'll say it again, to not be distracted by whatever, bent justice systems, false allegations, to have the courage to just say, no, this is what I believe, this is what I think will work. Vote me in and I'll do it. Don't and I'll be gone. But he fervently believes, and I think that is a massive thing. Thank you to Matt in Cheshire. Keep your calls coming. 03444 499 1000. Hello to Pete. I haven't stopped smiling all day thinking about Trump being back in power. People probably think I've got bad wind. Don't be ridiculous. Pamela, can't believe how emotional I am. God bless Trump, hoping that this positivity will affect us. Caroline, Starmer has a plan. He plans to drive us all into poverty with net zero. Hello to Rachel. Please let this send a signal to this country that there is no hope in the left. Only fools voted for them. And champagne socialists from Islington. Give us Farage. Next, Carol's in Clacton, which is, of course, Nigel Farage's home constituency. Great speech from Donald. How I wish we had someone like him running our country. It might be your local MP, Bill in Romsey. Good evening. Could you see Starmer making a speech like that without notes? No. I will tell you he had a screen, but don't worry about that. Mr. Starmer, that's how it's done. Read the speech, says Neil in Dorset. Steve Chandler, good afternoon. Just imagine if we had a leader who even had the courage to speak like this, who can define what his country needs. Instead, we've got a nasty, spiteful idiot who can't even define what a woman is. Stephen Millings is in Belfast. Talk, oh my God. I've never been more jealous of a country. I want a leader just like Trump. Our PM is a disgrace. I feel so ashamed. And for now, Andrew Besford. This is a totally different Trump, more confident, more controlled by the looks. America have got it right, someone that loves his country, whilst we, I think this is so important, seemingly have somebody who hates our country. We go next to Peggy Grant, former executive assistant to Ronald Reagan and actually a political appointee in the previous Trump administration, a Republican from California. Peggy, welcome to Talk Drive. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
What did you make of that speech? People in the United Kingdom are blown away by it so far.
It was beautiful. It was quintessential Trump, yet it was unifying. It was patriotic. It was visionary. It was everything that the people who voted for him wanted to see and hear from him. And I'd like to think that it was everything that the people who didn't vote for him, who are going to be living in the United States under his leadership the next 4 years, also wanted to hear from him. He talked about unity. He talked about wanting to be a peacemaker. Here is a man who has had such resolve and yet resilience. These are things that we need. He created this beautiful picture of who we as Americans want to strive to be. He said, in America, the impossible is what we do best. He said, let's stand proudly, live boldly, and dream big. This was an inspiring, forward-looking speech. And for all the people who were worried that he was going to look back with a vengeance, he's been saying it all along, and he put an apostrophe at the end of it today when he said, our only revenge will be America's success. It was beautiful. It was moving. And what an incredible day, not only for America, but for our allies all over the world as well.
I mean, that for me, the response from the audience here is actually, it's interesting because I was saying the other day, somebody said, like him or loathe him, whether he was inappropriate. I don't know. All I know is that if somebody stands up and says, do you know what, people, I understand you've paid too much for your gas, too much for your food, you've been taxed to the hilt, you seem to be paying out whilst people come into our country and take advantage of services that you can't get. We're not the power we were. We don't have the respect. There's no law and order. There's crime on the streets. If you came to England, people were saying to me, and you said that, it would resonate. And I think that's the point. And I think Donald Trump, we can talk about his courage, we can talk about everything, but he's got a vision. Whether it's a vision or not, or whether it's just buying into what people want, he listens. He talked about, you know, the black and Hispanic vote. I hear you. He talked about Martin Luther King, but he kept saying, I mean, stuff that over here, I think so many people go, oh my God, stuff the green thing, he said. Let's drill, baby, drill. It's like liquid gold. That's true, isn't it?
Absolutely. There were so many beautiful elements of this speech, and he respectfully, I think as best as he could, called out Joe Biden, who was seated right behind him, and said America has a crisis of trust. We don't believe our leaders. We don't trust our institutions of government, and we're going to restore and change all that. He said we're going to have a revolution of common sense. This is what people want.
That was from us, by the way. Hold on. That was from this station that has been talking about common sense for about 15 years, no, 5 years. So we're going to have a word with him. This is the home of common sense. I reckon he's nabbed that off us.
Well, regardless of whether you're left or right, you're a progressive, you're ultra-conservative, everybody, I think, can agree upon the fact that government needs to get back to common sense. We need to get back to doing the things that the people elect us and trust us to do. So with this crisis of trust, he is going to restore trust and transparency. Remember, Joe Biden, when he took the oath of office and gave his inaugural address, he talked about being a unifier. He talked about having the most transparent presidency in history. He has failed at both of those. And here comes Donald Trump, who beautifully is unifying after the wheels of justice have been weaponized against him. They have tried to put him in jail. They've tried to tie him up in court. His life was almost taken. And yet here he is unifying the country and the allied nations in a beautiful message of hope and optimism. I couldn't be more excited for the next 4 years. We are witnessing the dawn of the golden age of America. And since I worked for President Reagan, I couldn't help but waking up this morning, and as the sun was coming up in DC, I thought, once again, like Ronald Reagan, it's morning in America.
It's amazing. We're really glad to have you on. Peggy Grant, thank you, former executive assistant to Ronald Reagan, talking about what it means to wake up in America as a Republican today. So Donald J. Trump is inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States of America. He says that America's decline is over. Change is coming fast. He says he will sign executive orders today. An emergency on the southern border. From now on, the American policy will be there's only two genders, man and woman. He says, well, I'm going to deliver you a coloured, blind and merit-based society. What do you make of it? So many people inspired by the speech. There were people who are not. 0344 499 1000. Your chance to get on talk in the next hour on Drive, or you can get us via the text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We, my friends, have the news at 6, which is next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Final hour of Drive for Monday, the 20th of January 2025, the day that Donald J. Trump made the biggest political comeback, frankly, in world politics, to just have been inaugurated as the 47th president. The most extraordinary speech, I have to say. We took the whole thing for you at Talk. There'll be loads of people dissecting it. It seemed calmer. It seemed more controlled. It seemed a man who probably was aware of what was going on around him. Certainly he's listened to the American people. He said the change is coming fast. America's decline is over. He said some pretty strong things. He said that I'm going to declare a national emergency on the southern border as of today, because our country is being flooded by illegal immigrants who are making the lives of everyday Americans in middle America, not in Washington, D.C. or anywhere else, but in middle America, is making it bad. He said, I'm going to deliver a rich nation that affects the American people. He said, to hell with net zero. I'm going to drill, baby, drill. We've got liquid gold under our ground. That can benefit everybody. He said, oh, my God, there's two genders, male and female. And he said, I'm going to deliver a colourblind and merit-based society. Oh, my God, yes, he said he was going to plant a US flag on Mars, and yes, he said, and I quote, God saved me for a reason, so I can save you. But the truth of the matter is, there is a man, whether you agree with everything or nothing that he says, the truth is, that is, in my mind, a politician who stands up and goes, I've listened to what the people want, and I'm going to deliver it. Difficult it is. What did you make of it? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87 222. Loads of them. Caroline, the Democrats' faces during the Trump speech is a picture. I've never seen so many Poe faces in all of my life. Hilarious. Keith says Clinton not looking too well. Also, the big debate, by the way. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Michelle Obama, the only ex-First Lady not there. Barack there on his own. People are saying, is it DIVORCE? Is somebody ill? Does she hate Trump that much? Or is there more to it? We'll find out. Jacqueline says, I predict Donald Trump Jr. to be the 48th president of the United States in 2029. No, not yet, but I guess one day. Stoke-on-Trent, thank you, Jack. Hello to Michael Swan. Are you listening, Sir Keir Starmer? Don't be ridiculous. He'll be sitting cross-legged having a vegan sausage somewhere. That's it, isn't it? I've just watched one of the greatest political speeches of the world, and I think of Keir Starmer saying it's time to release the sausages. What a load of old crap. Trump's speech and intention is just awesome. Why can't we have someone in the UK that demonstrates such strength as PC in Leeds? Oh dear, PC. Michelle, just imagine a leader that can give a speech this long without having to look at his script every 2.5 seconds, like the sorry excuse we have here. Tony Francine, watching Trump's speech, Jez, made me cry, realising how lucky they are to have him on their side and seeing hope in their eyes whilst we have a spineless bunch of hypocrites. William Briscoe, good evening. Wow. It's like listening to Winston Churchill, Jez. Great speech. Can we have him here, please? He's in Hawley, William. Thank you, William. Julia Forrest, Jez, never have I cheered so much at a speech in all of my born days, and I'm quite old. Trump has restored my faith in political leaders. How do we get a Donald for this country? Julia's in Mansfield. Mark Apple, you are. There's so many of you. Good evening, Jez. Hope Keir Starmer's watching, a true political, powerful, American-loving man supporting his country. Something to consider, Starmer. Why don't you put your country first? I'll tell you why, Mark Appleyard, shall I? Because he's not a fan of the United Kingdom, never bloody well has been. What do you make of today? 0344 499 1000. We will... Going now to the former Deputy Chair of the Tory Party, one Jonathan Gullis. A very good evening. How are you, sir?
Hey, Jeremy. How are you doing, buddy?
My God, tell me if I'm wrong. How inspiring was it to actually hear somebody have the balls to stand up and say what obviously many, many people think? Why don't people like you behave like that in this country, Gullis?
I hardly think, Jeremy, I've ever been accused of not saying what I think, and I've certainly said some things that's upset all the right people in the media, but ultimately got the backing of the country, even if sadly it meant that I wasn't able to win enough votes at the last election because of obviously things out of my control. But let me be clear, Jeremy. That was a very uplifting, positive outlook speech. Simple, basic things like there's only two genders. Hallelujah. Drill, baby, drill. If only Ed Miliband could get aboard that agenda and use the liquid gold we have in the North Sea, rather than trying to put solar farms everywhere and rely on wind, even though the wind doesn't always blow. And to say that there was a national emergency on the border, using the troops to defend their southern border, to throw everything at it to make sure that people in this country are safe, particularly after we've seen the court case today with the Southport trial that's going on. I appreciate we can't comment further, but I think it's so important to understand that this is exactly the optimism, the boosterism, the hope that people in this country, as your listeners have been saying in the text messages coming in, want to hear from politics. And if Keir Starmer's got anything about him, he would roll out the red carpet to Donald J. Trump with a state visit, allow him to address Parliament, allow him to have a state banquet, and allow him to come to this country and actually pull us in the right direction.
But you know as well as I do, that's his problem, and that's because his tent was so wide. He tried to get everybody... Oh, look at the pictures on YouTube. This is embarrassing. So the helicopter's going to take them back to wherever. I love this. Does Trump get in the helicopter and Biden gets on the bus? Because I've never seen, by the way, anybody whose career is over look happier. I'm convinced that Joe Biden is like this. I'm just going to go... I'm out of this rubbish now, and I'll tell you something, right? Whatever anybody says, I beat him. Nobody else did. She's a loser. I'm off. That's what I think. But anyway, back to the main thing. I have to say, for me, to hear a man... And there's been many things, and I'll make this point because there'll be detractors. There's many people who would agree with me. There's been stuff said in the past that I don't agree with, OK? There's been things that Donald Trump has said and done that I don't agree with. But I will say this. When you hear somebody say, I get you're worried about immigration, I get you're worried about net zero, I get you worried about our schools being infected with a left-wing ideology that says, you know, there's 47 different types of human being and it doesn't matter whether you're good at something or not if you're a certain... No, that's all rubbish, isn't it? He seems to me, you know, to have understood, clasped and got hold of what millions of Americans want. You said about Starmer, he can't do that. He can't embrace Donald Trump because the left of his party would go mad. I guess there will be politicians, maybe you're one of them, who will think that the special relationship will endure. But if I was guessing at one thing, I would say that Donald J. Trump will not forget that Starmer sent people to support Kamala Harris. I just believe it. I just think that's the way. Oh, God, that's good. Poor old Kamala's got to go in a little cab now. She's not on the helicopter anymore. Bye-bye.
Well, like you say, Jeremy, as well, it's not just the fact that we had 100, I think, Labour operatives, activists out there campaigning against Donald J. Trump. It's all the horrendous thing that people like things like David Lammy, but also Sir Keir Starmer himself has said in the past about Donald J. Trump that already makes this an awkward and difficult transition in some ways, because obviously the relationship is on to a rocky start. And it's I think it says a lot that, for example, Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, Priti Patel are all out in Washington, Suella Braverman as well, yet no sign of any headline Labour politicians. And what we're now waiting to find out is, number one, will Peter Mandelson, Sir Keir Starmer's choice for ambassador, even be approved? And secondly, the Chagos Islands, an important piece of territory that we hold facing towards China that has an important army base that we share with the Americans. Sir Keir Starmer, bizarrely, not only wants to give that away, but pay £9 billion for the pleasure of doing so, 6 years' worth of winter fuel allowance. And I pray Donald J. Trump quickly announces that he will not agree to any such deal and puts Sir Keir Starmer back in his place. Why anyone would want to weaken our country at a time when we are facing existential threats from around the world is beyond me. And it's, again, that strength that Donald J. Trump exhumes, and the fact that dictators, dangerous people, don't understand nor know how serious or not Donald J. Trump is.
Can I just jump in? I agree with JG, everything you said. It's quite interesting, this. So Kamala Harris has been packed off in a cab. We're now watching, if you're watching on YouTube, I don't know what the helicopter's called, Air Force 3, I don't know what it's called. This massive helicopter is now taking Donald J. Trump, Melania, Joe Biden and Mrs. Biden. Well, they're all standing by the helicopter. So are they flying together? I've no idea. But it is extraordinary that Donald J. Trump has just spent 40 minutes telling the world that everything that Joe Biden did was basically rubbish. I know you wanted to say. And now he's his wife's kissing him and he's saying, well done. Now Joe's getting on the helicopter. Where's Biden? When Biden's going on the helicopter, where's the president going? Hold on. Biden's leaving Washington. Terrari's gone. That's it. Helicopter's gone. Donald Trump's going back to work.
Jeremy, I think my understanding is that Biden now goes off to wherever I think he wants to go, normally home, and then Trump will be on his way into the White House. And I think, was it 200 executive orders essentially that are being rumoured over the next week? I think 100 they want to get signed today. So he's got a lot of writing to do today. But what a relief to hear someone who's not scared to say it as it is. And like you, I don't agree with everything Donald Trump says. I have a different view to him, for example, on Ukraine. But let me be clear, I respect the fact that he doesn't pander to the media, doesn't pander to left-wing activists, doesn't pander to even people in his own party at times who are, let's be honest, out of touch with the reality of the country. And I wish that we in the Conservative Party, under Kemi Badenoch, find that strength to not worry about upsetting people on Twitter or upsetting people on TikTok or upsetting people even on the left of the Conservative Party or upsetting noisy people like Rory Stewart and Dominic Grieve, who quite frankly don't belong in the Conservative Party. I hope that Kemi finds that strength to say the things that needs to be said, that the British people want their politicians to say. And I think that is the way, that is the route back for the Conservative Party. Because at the moment, the only politician that sounds vaguely authentic and believable at this moment in time is Nigel Farage.
And that's interesting, by the way. Just very quickly, your response to this, and I'll keep you with me while we do some voice notes. Nigel Farage was not inside the rotunda, not inside the building on Capitol Hill where the inauguration took place, but your ex-leader, Boris Johnson, was. Did you know that?
Yeah, I saw photos of Boris Johnson now. I'm assuming, obviously, that he and Donald Trump did have a good relationship, and I don't think it's under... I'm not going to snipe at Nigel. I suspect what happened is that because Boris is a former prime minister, that therefore there would be a level of seniority involved. And also, the Trump administration aren't going to want to ruffle feathers straight out the gate. At the end of the day, Nigel Farage is a sitting member of parliament, the leader of an opposition party to the sitting government. And maybe they just thought, in the interest of a little bit of diplomacy and goodwill, that they weren't going to ruffle too many feathers.
I've just seen something that's really ironic. The helicopter that's just leaving Capitol Hill with Joe Biden and Jill Biden, their careers finished, they're off to retirement. This helicopter, as you know, used to be called Air Force One and was part of the thing, but the Democrats decided to save money, presumably to pay for all the illegal migrants that came in. So now that he's just leaving on a United States of America helicopter that used to be far more grand. Anyway, I thought I'd share that with you. Right, pin back your logos, JG. Voice note. Let's go to David in Derby. Go.
Just watching the Trump inauguration, it makes you jealous, doesn't it? It makes you jealous of having somebody so passionate, so in with his people, so doesn't look down at anybody, thinking everybody's a far-right thug. It just makes you jealous that someone's got charisma, really cares.
Completely agree. Let's go to Sally in Lincolnshire. Go.
Whether or not the new president fulfills all the promises he's made in his inaugural speech, what a wonderful speech it was, inspiring. Why on earth haven't we got anybody like this here? All they do is talk down the country.
Finally, for now, Dave's in Southend. Hello, Dave.
Can you relay a message to Donald once he's finished these 4 years in America? Can he come over here and sort this country out, please? Oh, God, what a great speech. Inspiring.
There you go, JG. 3 people picked from nowhere, all saying the same thing. Like him or loathe him at certain times, his speech has resonated with millions of pounds. Fighting words from a man who says, I'm fighting for you. God knows we could do with that here, right?
Well, it's no coincidence that when people have won big majorities in this country, and that's your Clement Attlees, to your Winston Churchills, to your Margaret Thatchers, to your Tony Blairs, and your Boris Johnsons, it was done because they offered optimism, they offered hope, they had belief in their country, they were patriotic, and they wanted to make sure that they brought genuine change to the nation and willing to take on the establishment to some regard, albeit I think Tony Blair actually was the embodiment of the establishment, but all the others, I think, were willing to fight against it. And I think that is, for me, something that is so lacking right now in British politics. And I think the only people I sort of hear, sadly, at this moment in time, really thinking outside the box are those reform members of Parliament. And I hope, again, as I say, the Conservative Party grabs the agenda. That is, let's cut waste, let's cut the amount of government that's in our lives, let's cut taxes so people have more money in their pocket, but let's also then actually focus on what the government should be doing. Let's have a better run NHS, let's make sure our police are actually on the streets dealing with real crime rather than what people say on social media. Let's make sure that we've got a welfare system that does genuinely protect those who most need it, but not people just trying to sign off on the dole because they can't be bothered to go to work. And let's make sure that we have an education system that is about education, not about agendas, not about ideologies, but about empowering them and giving over the knowledge and the skills for those future generations to get those high-skilled, high-wage jobs we want in our community.
Couldn't agree more. And the feeling from the viewers and the listeners here is that this man is leading the way. Jonathan Gullis, ex-deputy chair of the Conservative Party, talk presenter. We appreciate you being on. Thank you so much indeed. 17 minutes past 6. We're live across the UK. Talk Drive on till 7. What did you make of that inauguration? 47th President of the United States is Donald J. Trump, back inside Capitol Hill as Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden, the wife, the power behind the throne. Well, isn't it extraordinary how... I mean, it's a bit like this business. Isn't it extraordinary how your career... He went into that building as the President of the United States. He's been flown out of Capitol Hill as an ex-president. I mean, we saw... I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube. You might catch it later. We saw the army guys walking behind him with the boxes, which is the nuclear codes. The minute, all of that, it changes literally overnight, instantly. Well, not overnight, in the next sort of 5 minutes. What do you make of it? 0344 499 1000. We'll go to Hertfordshire. Wayne, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening.
Hey, Jezza, how you doing?
Not too bad for a balding 59-year-old has-been. What you got?
I'm balding too, and I'm only 47, so you're doing well.
I am.
What a speech. I mean, just listen to what he come out with and what he said. And yet we've got Keir Starmer, who all he wants to do is destroy our country.
Yep.
Like, that guy is about America. What is our Prime Minister doing?
I genuinely believe that our Prime Minister is a globalist, and I don't care if this is unpopular, it probably will be. I don't believe that Keir Starmer or any of the Labour government are patriots, to coin a Trump phrase. I don't believe they're proud of the United Kingdom. I think that they would do anything. That's why they all prefer Europe. They prefer, and that's why he went to 16 countries. There's stuff... Well, I'll repeat it because I'll say it all day because I'll get slagged off. Not that I really give a damn. People will say, oh, Donald Trump's done this. He's been inappropriate with... Yes, I don't unacknowledge the fact there are times and things that he's done that I completely disagree with. But let me get this straight. If you understand, if you're Donald Trump, that your people are fed up with immigration, you're fed up with control of kids in schools, your health service is on its backside, if you think that you're in a society where it matters the colour or creed rather than your ability to get a job, and you're brave enough to stand there and say it, you are going to win by a mile. And we do not have, as you said, any politicians brave enough to do that. They'll say, we don't have a system. We're so entrenched in what's right and what's going to upset anybody. Everybody, they talk about snowflakes. He proved that if you believe in what you say and you're prepared to take all the crap that's thrown at you, you can come out the other side. I think it's inspirational from that point of view, if you know what I mean. Wayne, do you agree?
It's very inspirational. You know, why should you should be doing what's good for your people.
Yep.
You know, we're paying the taxes. We are the people that he should be looking after. And he doesn't give a toss about anybody but him and his socialist people. He's a fascist. I don't like the guy. We need to get rid of him, Jeremy. We need him out.
Good. Love your call. Thank you, Wayne. Now, when I started this show, and whenever I've been here, I've always said that the thing about talk is we should talk about it spreading out across the country. This isn't about some posh boy in London called Tarquin. This is about Betty in Rochdale. Tarquin's in London. Hello, son. How are you?
I love you too, Jezza. I love you, mate.
Are you a posh boy, are you?
No, it's a pseudonym, you silly...
All right.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you get out the bath to have a pee. You're quite well known. Come on then, Tarquin. What you got for me?
Well, what it is, right? Well, I just echo all of my fellow patriots. What a speech. We triggered this when we voted for Brexit 2016. We were part of this. It's just that we've been screwed over by our first past the post system. That's what stopped us from having this glorious day as well in England, in Britain. Secondly, this is a speech that puts Keir Starmer on notice and the Labour disloyal, whatever they are. And thirdly, I expect to see the US Marines and the US Navy coming up the channel to protect us from this invasion that we've got going on, because the bloody Royal Navy ain't going to do it.
Or the RNLI. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Tarquin. Apparently that's not his name. Rob's been on, my mate from Newcastle. What a speech, Jez. Imagine having someone in charge of the country who cares about the country and loves your country. I'm jealous of the American people today. It shows even more the pathetic excuse of a leader we have in the United Kingdom. Hello to William. Loved it. Sorry. John Spivey. Is somebody really called Spivey? Nice. Jez, what an inspiring speech from the 47th President. Oh, that we could have someone like that here instead of that fixing the foundation Starmer. You're quite right. Mark's in Coventry. Jez, please, can we have a Prime Minister with balls like Trump? What a man, Brian. Right. Any chance of the UK becoming a state of the USA? We could become the 57th one. Seriously, Trump put Starmer and co in the shade by a mile. Martin Allen, good afternoon. What a speech. Me? What? Men are men and women are women. Drill, baby, drill. Panama deposit illegal. You better take this in, Starmer. We want our country back, not sold off. Hello to Carol. Shoreham-on-Sea. Jez, just watch the Donald. What a brilliant, inspiring speech. Exactly what we need here. Still, at least we've got Nigel. Where was he? Excellent coverage. I did my best. Molly. Rhymes with Dolly. I don't know why I said that. And Holly. And Golly. But anyway, what? Why does a thing say Molly and he's called Alan from Newport? Now I look like a right idiot. Alan from Newport. Why is your thing called Molly? Anyway, I'm so jealous of the American people. I wish so much that we had a Trump to sort this country out. What an amazing speech. And we know it's not just words. He will make America great again. Nick's in Richmond. Oh, my God. Never been a fan of Trump, but my word, his speech was pure common sense. Yes, it was. In fact, he said it's a revolution of common sense because he nicked it off us. He's learned his lessons from his previous tenure. I think that's probably right. Why on God's earth can we not see something similar here? It's just so depressing. Only positive from this side of the pond was watching Biden and Harris's awkwardness. Oh, the day we can see the same in Starmer. Jane Bates. Trump totally nailed it. 2 genders, male and female, and actually his whole speech was 100%. Matty G. What's the G for? Blown away by that speech by Trump. Jez, inspirational. Why can't we have a leader? They're all saying the same. Danny in East Yorkshire. Hello to you. Who would have thought that an American president would get a round of applause for stating there is only 2 sexes? Utter madness. Ben in Plymouth. Ben in Plymouth. Trump can drop the mic after that speech. Starmer must be quaking in his boots. He might be. 0344 499 1000 is our telephone number if you want to tell us what you made of that inauguration speech. JD Vance speaking as we speak right now to the people behind the campaign. Donald Trump in just a bit. What did you make of it all? 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I'm off for a wee. I'll be back in 3.
Condolences and thoughts and prayers and love must go out to the victims' families and all those who are directly affected in Southport. This is a tragedy of unthinkable scale. But what we see now from the guilty plea is that there was an element of terrorism involved, and these were terrorist attacks. And so there are real questions to ask about how the government was communicating what they knew in the aftermath of the incident.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:27, welcome back to Talk. Kev is here from 7 o'clock with his, his asylum, really. Petra's here from 10. She's fantastic. John Carmichael, great speech. No reference to sausages. Boris is only in the room because he's a former Prime Minister. Nigel wouldn't be allowed under inauguration etiquette. There we go. Steph says, I've been welling up watching The Don, and that's the only time after losing my dad last year. I just hope it's for the best. And actually, I think we could do with something like that here. Tony Gannon, President Trump slaughtered the deep state in his speech. Joe Biden was ridiculed. Hello to Carol in Southampton. What an amazingly powerful speech by Trump. America have Superman whilst we have bleeding Mr. Ben. Hello to Claire in Liverpool. What an incredible and imaginative speech, full of common sense. Trump was definitely spared his life for a reason. Interestingly, in Jewish tradition, bleeding from the left ear signified your obedience to God. Like you, I don't agree with absolutely everything he's done or said, but agree with this speech. He's not messing around, common sense. Hello to Melissa in Aberdeen. Hello to Mick as well. Lindsay in Dartford. Trump's speech today was so uplifting. Oh, I wish I could move to America. Keir Starmer should watch this and feel ashamed of himself, listening to a man who is putting his people first despite everything he's been through. Thank you to Lindsay. Richie, helicopter is called Marine One, but we'll finish with Phil from Portsmouth, who says, how funny was that? Joe Biden I missed this, walked up the stairs of the helicopter, turned round to wave, and everybody had buggered off inside Capitol Hill for lunch, and he was just left there on his own. Bless his heart. Right, 6:28. I wanted to put this person on, and she'll know why. Amy Tarkanian was a Republican strategist and a former chair of the Nevada Republican Party. Amy, welcome to Talk Drive. How are you?
I'm well, Jeremy.
You
Go
know
ahead.
what's coming.
Lob the arrows. Lob the arrows.
You know what's coming. You said to me on numerous occasions that this man, there was so much about Donald Trump that you felt was not conducive with ever coming back. He couldn't win. He'd upset too many people. I would respectfully suggest, and I'd love your opinion. I thought that was an incredibly inspiring, calm, collected speech that showed a man who's learnt, I have to say, from his first experience. What would you say now?
His tone and tenor were perfect. And yes, I think if it were any other human being on the planet, you and I could both agree that just one or two of the scenarios that Donald Trump had to survive, they would have been finished politically. But for some reason, some purpose, and he has said it himself, he believes that he was spared for this time being to serve once again as our president. Here he is. So, I think the fact that he made a very lengthy list of promises on the campaign trail, he has quite an uphill battle. But we are now hearing that it's going to be upwards of 200 executive orders in the 48 hours of him and serving in his second term.
I was saying here,
signing these.
I was saying here for us, and I've made the point, and I'll make it to you. I don't agree with everything he's ever said. I don't agree with a lot of what he's done. But what he's managed to do in that 40 minutes, and hundreds, thousands of our listeners are sending text messages saying the same, is he manages to have proven that there are politicians, maybe they don't come from the Washington elite or the Islington elite over here, who are able to listen to engage what your countrymen and women are talking about in the pub, at the water cooler, what they're concerned about, not ideology in schools or pronouns in federal buildings, but actually, correct. I'm really sorry I paid my tax. Same over here. People are coming into our country who are getting better service than I am, and I pay my bloody taxes. People who can't see a doctor or a GP. Petrol prices through the roof, food prices through the roof, and all this time, oil and gas under the ground whilst we're perpetrating this green agenda, which, yes, might be very ideologically based and fantastic for the climate, but right now we're in trouble. And to me, listening to it, all of his flaws aside, to me, that is a man who's listened to the American people. And all saying here, right? Listen to this. Shirley in Durham, after Donald Trump's incredible speech and what he said, will our Prime Minister now call him a far-right thug? That's what you get in this country.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I think really what you just touched on is true. So despite your party affiliation, despite you're across the pond, despite which country that you currently reside in, people are really sick and tired of being railroaded and gaslighted. And they like the fact that you have somebody in Donald Trump, in President Trump, who is not just aggressive, but he's being extremely aggressive in reality and common sense. And so that's what's been lacking for so long. And especially under the Biden administration, when you dealt with what was called diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they were thrusting that upon our members of our military, instead of having them focus on things that are of importance and our safety, and focusing on securing our borders and allowing millions of illegal aliens to come in, and not just come in, but you have now the incoming border czar, Tom Homan, who actually during an interview said that there's roughly 700,000 illegal immigrants with criminal records that are roaming around on our streets, not even in jails. They're out roaming around. So they're not joking. They're going to tackle this list, this to-do list of executive orders, swift and with a very heavy fist.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, so I'll ask you the question, because you said you didn't want him to be president. Did you vote for him?
I'm not going to share that. but remember, though, I wasn't somebody who was just not wanting him to be president. I really, truly wanted two new options. So I was what was labeled a double hater. It's not that I felt Kamala Harris was the better option. By God, no. But I just was hoping for two fresh options. But we do have somebody who's in the right place at the right time, so it's time to move forward.
And I must say, one of the greatest moments today was seeing Kamala Harris's face during the whole thing. It was absolutely fantastic. Talk about hacked off. Thank you so much indeed. Amy Tarkanian, a Republican strategist, former chair of the Republican Party in Nevada. Pictures on screen will continue throughout. So I think Biden's left and gone to a military base where he's talking to 4 people and he's off to the beach. 0344 499 1000. Let's go to Bedfordshire. Is it Chiro?
It is, Jeremy. Chiro, thank you. Wow, wow, wow.
Have you got a sense of humour?
I have, yeah.
What's your favourite breakfast cereal?
Oh, Multi Cheerios, of course.
Good boy, crack on.
I'll tell you what, that was an invigorating speech, but I tell you, I hope we feel the ripple of common sense come across the pond now, but I bet you Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan are going to tell us that this is a wave of fascism.
It's interesting, isn't it? You're absolutely spot on, Shira, because literally the couple of days before the inauguration, old Sir Sadiq, the man who puts diversity and inclusiveness above anything of common sense, it obviously been knighted. Everybody rose up and went, what for? He said, Donald Trump's inauguration is all about fascism. For me, Chiro, right, what it says is that that's a man who's listened to what the American people want, which we desperately need in this country, for God's sake.
And we're screaming out for it. But you know what? The most exciting thing, I was in America in November when he won the vote, and the most exciting thing for me is his depth of squad. You've got J.D. Vance as his running mate, and I implore anybody to go listen to Vance and Rogan's podcast because he speaks so eloquently. And if Trump is in for 4 years and Vance is in for 8 years, we've got 12 years of American awesomeness rippling through the world. And
then possibly his son, which would be very interesting. Listen, great to have you on, buddy. Bedfordshire's a great place. Chiro, thank you for being on Talk Drive. 25 to 7, 25 minutes away from Kev. So much to deal with. The Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice, will be here to talk about Trump, and also, more importantly, that appalling news earlier today. The Southport killer, Axel Rudikabana, admitted guilt in killing those 3 young girls, stabbing them to get death in July last year. But the shocking news is that he was referred to the government's anti-counter-terrorism prevent programme several times, but that did nothing to help those 3 young girls. Breaking news on Talk. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has just announced there will be a public inquiry into the Southport attacks to get the truth about what happened and what needs to change. Possibly the bloody government. Back in a tick.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
2 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're live across the UK Talk Drive. I was thinking when I took this gig that Drive, it always happens during Drive, doesn't it? The inauguration speech there of the now 47th President of the United States. We'll discuss that, as we will the breaking news that the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has, some would say conveniently, just announced that there will be a public inquiry into the Southport attacks to get the truth about what happened and what needs to change. This on the back of the news this morning that the Southport killer, Axel Bakana, I can't get it, was referred to the government's counter-terrorism group Prevent several times but was ignored. The Deputy Leader of Reform, who has been so vocal about this piece of whatever, Richard Tice, is with us. Can I put something to you that somebody said earlier? And I'm not into conspiracy theories. I'm into trying to do right by people, right? Interesting that this all came out today. I know Harry Cole said to me the court set dates, but on a day of the biggest news in the world, I mean, Starmer would be trounced over this on any other day, wouldn't he? This is appalling.
It is appalling, and it's also interesting that the lawyers, the defence lawyers, decided, contrary to Rudy Cabana's previous plea of not guilty, they decided that actually they were not going to submit any defence whatsoever. Essentially, it looks like they basically said to the essentially now the murderer who's admitted it, you're on your own, pal. We're not going to defend you, which of course then denies any information coming out in the trial, and that's sort of left everybody thinking, well, that's convenient. Yeah. That's convenient. So look.
Can we make the point that the government's counter-terrorism prevent programme, right, it obviously failed in this case because this piece of rubbish was allowed to wander the streets. However, I'm also into honesty. This was in July, OK? The counter-terrorism organisation programme prevent was not set up by Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. Patently, that as an organisation, a group, doesn't work.
And hasn't worked for many, many years, and everybody's known it hasn't worked and doesn't work. But let's be clear, just in case people are sort of signing on straight after work, he was actually, this guy, this horrific individual, was referred to Prevent not once, not twice, but 3 times.
And nobody did anything about
over a period of 3 or 4 years, and they decided that it wasn't sufficient to consider that it might require greater intervention. At which point you think, how incompetent are you? How grossly negligent are you? What's the point of you? Frankly, just disappear and we'll start the whole thing again.
Well,
I think the anger across the country
I agree.
about the failure of that programme, and it's not just Prevent, there are other things that are going to come out of this. And the Home Secretary is giving a statement in the House tomorrow.
That was breaking news.
OK, that could be quite a long statement. We'll obviously be listening with great interest. But I think there are multiple people in positions of authority who have utterly failed, most tragically the girls, their family, their friends, and the British people.
So it's interesting, I was in a car on Saturday night and we were talking about reform to the driver, and he said, what I find astonishing was this guy, just a guy, I'd never met him before, is he said that 5 MPs, literally 5, make more noise than the other 600 and whatever it is. Nigel, of course, has said that Sir Keir Starmer and the police were guilty of a gigantic cover-up over the Southport murders. He was prevented, though, wasn't he, Nigel, from asking questions in Parliament about the background of Rudy Bakana and whether he was known to the authorities. He claimed the riots that occurred in the wake of the murders were caused by the withholding of information from the public rather than the stabbings themselves, which is really interesting.
What was truly disgraceful was the day after these horrific murders, Nigel simply asked, there are questions to ask here, and we need some answers, and I'm not certain that we're being told the truth. And he was lambasted for that by the authorities, the establishment, the Home Secretary. Everyone tried to shut him down, and actually it turns out, guess what?
He's right again.
Bang on the money.
As you were about the Manchester, those two...
And we should have been told that day the truth about what's gone on. And I tell you what, I don't know where this ends, but I think people will be enraged. There's all sorts of rumours and stories, and let's hear what the Home Secretary has to say.
And let's remember, this was 3 young girls: Alice De Silva Aguirre, 9, BB King, 6, 7-year-old Lucy Dot Stancombe. These were 3 girls murdered by this piece of unbelievable rubbish. Axel Rudapakana. And you know, you can argue left, right and centre. Old Prevent's been going for years. But Nigel did. He stood up and he said, Starmer went, the riots are far right. Somebody sent me a text just now. After that speech by Donald Trump, is Keir Starmer going to call Donald Trump a far-right thug? Let's move to that, because the Southport killings are appalling, and we will talk more tomorrow, because I know that Home Secretary Yvette Cooper announcing a public inquiry. She'll do a speech to the House tomorrow. We'll cover that on Talk. What did you make of the 47th?
I think it's one of the most memorable, incredible political speeches by an American president, frankly, any political leader. I mean, that will go down as a truly historic speech. It was remarkable. I was sort of busy tweeting. I loved all of it, but the best of all was when he said he's going to declare a national energy emergency and drill, baby, drill. And that's how you create growth, by having lots of your own energy, creating your own jobs, and they've got cheap energy, and we've got to do exactly the same here. We should be drill, baby, drilling here in the United Kingdom.
I thought that was good, but I thought there was also another thing that was quite good. Stand by through the glass. We've spent 3 or 4 years, and you were part of Talk, talking about one thing and one thing only. The fact that people can come here and listen because it's based on common sense. I would respectfully suggest that reform is based on common sense. This is what the 47th President of the United States has stolen from Talk.
Today I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense.
That's him talking about common sense. And we elected a... This is our Prime Minister talking about Middle East hostages. Have a listen.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Sorry, I mean, I know people look at it's a bit unfair. That's what we've got. I thought it was incredibly inspiring. I make the point to you that I made to other people. I don't agree with everything he's ever said. I don't agree with some of what he's done. But when you have somebody who patently has listened to what the American people want and can come on and say, right, change is coming, decline is over, I'm going to declare a state of emergency on the southern border because of the immigration problem. I'm going to drop net zero and drill, baby, drill. He called it liquid gold. I'm going to deliver a colour-blind and merit-based society. And from now on, American policy and government will be there's two genders, male and female.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Everything, with respect, without wanting to be like a reform poster boy here, everything that reformers talked about, and by the way, whilst including Starmer, they've all gone, oh, that's far right. It's not far right, it's common sense, right?
It's common sense. It's actually just right. And what I love was
very
when
good. You've nicked a serial thing now, see?
I like the fact that he declared the drug cartels as foreign terrorist organisations. I like the fact that he declared a national security emergency on his southern border. Frankly, we could do exactly the same if we had courageous leadership. And, scrapping the ridiculous net zero targets and the electric vehicle mandates, all of this stuff. I mean, he is going to create such an energetic element of growth and prosperity and making American citizens better off. And frankly, I'm jealous. And I think the British people will be jealous of that growth, that activity.
Lisa in Cheshire. All my life I've been proud to be British. Right now I'm devastated, and it's the first time I've ever wished to be an American citizen. Great show today. This is another one, Deborah. I'm not politically minded, but Trump's speech was utterly spectacular. I can't wait to see him in Davos next week with Sir Keir Starling after today's speech. Two-tier must be quaking in his shoes. I just think justice, common sense prevails. And as I say, we're not painting him to be the most perfect individual, but a bit like Nigel and yourself, is politics not about listening to what the people want? And whether the lefties want to tell us that it's far right and it's wrong to be talking about immigration or looking after your own, I just don't. I think people.
Well, it's about understanding what concerns people.
Yes,
it's about understanding what's working for folk and what's not, and then saying, OK, right, what do we do about it? What are the solutions? There's the problem. What's the solution? And that's what we try and do. And then having the courage to say, I've got this serious, strong conviction. I've always had it on the madness of net zero. Taken more grief on that than on Brexit. But I tell you what, in the UK, the worm is turning. And, net zero is going to be forefront at the next election, and I think we're going to get it overturned. And it's the absolute critical component of restoring growth to United Kingdom.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it's interesting to get, I mean, it's so interesting to get this great speech from Trump. Says, Kevin, the blue-haired they and themers will be spitting feathers now that their gender isn't real or official. Pete in Croydon. Afternoon, Jez. What a brilliant speech from Lord Donald. This is the year of justice and common sense. Talking about justice, great win for the mighty Eagles. No idea. Mark in Norfolk. The newly announced inquiry is simply an excuse for every Labour MP to say, I can't comment because there's an official inquiry for the next 3 years. That's interesting, isn't it? Are you happy to stay for 10 more mins?
Of course.
Deputy Leader of Reform with us on Talk Drive, coming back in 3.
I hope that my Prime Minister didn't sign on to a deal that doesn't have future agreements between the US and Israel about the Islamic Republic of Iran or the future of fighting against Hamas in Gaza, and perhaps positive things about normalizing ties with Saudi Arabia. I hope that that's part of the deal, because otherwise this is not a good deal.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 8 minutes to 7, 8 minutes away from Kevin O'Sullivan, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK. Richard Tice with me with his headset in. Very quickly, Kate in Warwickshire. 2 sexes, baby steps, but great sense. I agree with that. Phil in Basingstoke. Listen to this. Got home from a long and stressful day at work and have been totally rejuvenated by Trump's speech. I would hope that Starmer and his cronies get the message that this is the fighting talk so desperately needed over here. Starmer will do what he always does, though, doubling down and carrying on with his disastrous agenda and trying to distance himself from Donald's rhetoric. If I could move to the States tomorrow, I would go there in a minute. Fran from Sussex. I switched to the BBC at 6 p.m. to see what they were saying, and it's not celebratory at all. It's actually quite dour.
Oh, the BBC is very dour, but actually I'm just going to put a marker down. the Labour government know that they've got to change their tone. And just today in the chamber, the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, he actually was all of a sudden rather effusive about President Trump. And you think, hello, let's just remember what he said a few years ago. So they know they're on the back foot. They know they've got to change their language.
I love this country, and I want the United Kingdom to be successful. That's why, and I don't lie. I voted for reform, and I mean that. But I almost also want him to punish Starmer, but I don't want it to affect the country. 7 minutes to 7. Let's go to the phone lines. We'll go to Sussex. Charles, you're on Talk Drive with myself and Richard Tice. What you got?
Hi, Jeremy. Hi, Richard. Hope you're both well. Just a question. Now that we've got Donald Trump saying drill, baby, drill, what exactly are Ed Millipede and Keir Starmer going to do about the 0.00001% we contribute towards the saving of global warming?
Richard Tice?
Sadly, Charles, they're going to continue with their fingers in their ears and play deaf and continue this ludicrous just sort of rush towards making us ever more exposed. We've got the most expensive electricity in the world. That's directly linked to the increase in renewables. We nearly ran out of electricity a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
And it's insane. But the simple reality is scrap net zero, you get lower bills, lower cost of living. And that is the way to making everybody better off. But this lot, they won't change anything until we hoof them out.
It's true. Thank you, Charles. Let's go to Brighton. Dale, you're on Talk Drive. Richard Tice and myself. What you got?
Oh, hi, Jeremy. Hi, Richard. Yeah, no, I'm a fully paid up reform member. I actually phoned up, didn't think I'd actually get through, really, but I think I know the reason why Keir Starmer didn't go. It's because he had to spend more time on his backside than what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden did. Because it seemed like every minute Trump was saying something that everyone got up and gave a standing ovation.
And what was really brilliant, if you haven't watched this on YouTube, try and catch it tonight on, I promise you. Right next to Kamala Po-faced Harris was a woman in green who was patently a Republican who jumped up every 30 seconds and went like that. The look on their faces was just... Basically, what he came on and said was, I'm going to destroy everything that you've set up in the next 4 years. Thank you very much indeed for nothing. Joe Biden still sat there with a smile on his face, though. I'm convinced he's happy to be out of it.
Oh, well, the question is, did he know where he was? Did he know what was going on?
No, but you know what? I used to be like you on that. But you know something? I'm angry with those people and his family for putting him through that. If an 82-year-old man, they should respect the 50 years he did. Agree with them or don't agree with him?
When the truth comes out about, what really went on, and you talk about cover-ups, what they covered up, I mean, just truly shocking.
Thank you so much indeed to Del. Ready? This is from Jay in Coventry. Voice note, go.
Viva la Trump. Everyone's saying how different today is compared to last time he was in. But remember, last time he didn't expect to win. He done it as a joke. This year, he means business.
He really does mean business. And that's why the quality of his executive team is as strong as we've known, and they are ready, and they're going to hit the ground running. He's got a whole bunch of executive orders ready to roll. It's truly remarkable.
You're an elected politician in this country. I want to ask you something that nobody's been able to answer me today. So we saw last week his cabinet. We saw Hesketh, who was up for Defence Secretary, the other guy whose name... We saw them being interviewed, didn't we, by the Senate to verify whether they got the jobs. Then we heard nothing. Today, presumably, if you start as president, you can't start without a cabinet. Have they all been verified? Are we waiting? What happens? Do you know the answer to that?
To be confirmed, some still has to wait for their confirmation hearings. But look, I'm convinced they'll all be confirmed. He basically controls the whole of Congress. He controls both houses. And frankly, anybody that votes against one of his proposals, I suspect they might find it rather hard to get elected next time they put themselves in front of the voters. So
here's a million.
But the great thing is they're ready to go, and I just think you will see a quantity and pace of change that will shock everybody. And within that remarkable speech, renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, I mean, I'm wondering sort of what games we could play with that. That'd be quite fun.
We're at the Channel Tunnel, the British Channel, and it's ours, and you're not coming in your boat.
And then, what he said about the Panama Canal.
Yes.
Again, remarkable.
38,000 lives lost.
Most people would have no idea about that. And what he's basically saying is, he's putting American interests first, and we need leadership in this country that does the same.
How could you not be inspired by somebody who says, I'm going to make your lives financially better, more secure, I'm going to make us stronger on the world stage, I'm going to give you what you're missing out?
That's why people voted for him, even if they didn't actually like his personality. Because people at the end of the day said, who's going to make me better off? And it's the same, that's what we've got to ensure here, that people say, who's going to make me better off? Who's going to create more growth, more jobs, more money in my pocket at the end of the week? And who's going to stop all those idle people sitting on their backsides, creaming off the state? And we've had enough of it. We're just done with it.
And isn't it interesting as well, on the basis of Trump, and we've only got a minute left, isn't it interesting that actually those things that Reform and other politicians are now talking about, immigration, cost of living, looking after our own, charity begins at home, blah, 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 security, isn't it interesting